I'll let you know when I see it, Dave.
Are you guys hearing that music?
Nope.
Huh.
I'm hearing a hum.
That's my air conditioning. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Hold on a second. Why? We should be live now.
We're up. Yep.
Beautiful. But now why can't you hear my music? I want you to hear my music.
I'm hearing you talking though
Yeah, I
on
know.
YouTube.
They're hearing it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure.
They're hearing you talking. They're hearing us talking with you pinned. Yeah. You spotlit. Yeah.
No, but they should be hearing the audio too. Hmm.
No, I can confirm. I can confirm that I'm hearing us just talking.
Well, now that's strange. I have no idea why. Well, imagine that the song is playing, everyone, while I try and figure out why it's not playing. I just dance with Jason. Zooming in, we're testing it all. See, I can hear it each week. A diggy diggy doo. Oh, you know what? I know why. Can you hear it now? Yeah, that
Yes.
was it. Sorry about that. I'm not going to start the music over again. Oh, it went to me already. Sorry. Uh, 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 uh. We have to listen to the end. It's the best part of the whole song.
As
I'm
David
at
does
home,
his.
and my setup is not quite the same as it is in my office. So I apologize in advance. I don't even have Zoom OSC or any of my other toys in
So
here.
I
I'm
got you,
like,
Dave. Don't worry about it.
I'm all alone. This is so strange. Um, Hi. Happy 4th of July to our American people who are viewing or watching or celebrating. Yay, USA. God help us all. Okay. um, let's go over to some Canadians, shall we? Hey, Mike.
Hey, Dave.
How you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right. We're starting off scary this week, as everybody can see on YouTube.
No,
And
that's not.
David
It's not.
maybe enabled to some functionality on YouTube, maybe not. Mike might have. I
Okay,
don't
wait. So
know.
wait. So show. Hold on. Show me. What are we talking about here?
All right. So for everybody on YouTube this week, you'll notice that we now have the YouTube functionality of what we call YouTube top fans. So the more participation you have in chat, which has been lacking in many weeks, from
Mike
my
is a
part,
top fan.
I am a top fan.
Look at this. Holy moly. So there's Mike, and here's, look at that. You got the thing there. Mike is number one, and O1WWP2F is number two.
And that would be Robert from Poland.
Oh, that's Robert. Because those are the only two people in the chat right now.
Correct.
Wow, look at that.
Oh, and Tony Mobley is now number 3. He's adding himself into the game
Wait
now.
a second.
All right.
I want a crown.
You want a crown?
Yeah. I mean, I own the thing, so I don't own anything, but leaving the meeting and stay on YouTube. No, John, are you leaving the meeting because you want a crown? It's more fun. This is where all the cool kids hang out here in the Zoom.
Oh, and
all right. Well, that was kind of cool. I didn't even know that. Beautiful. More rare than a community champion. Exactly. Hey, Andre. Good to see you here. Bum, 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 bum. Hey, Ray.
Hey, Dave.
How are you?
I'm quite well. Thankful for our international participants. So we have a better house today.
We have a nice house today. Always. And mostly because Jason's here. Yeah.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! How you doing?
Happy 249th Independence Day.
Yeah, next year's going to be a big one for us.
Big one.
That's a big, exciting deal that I couldn't care less about. Frank from Canada. Where are you in Canada, Frank?
Ottawa, the nation's capital.
The nation's capital. Is that east or west? I have no idea. Or north or south?
Let's say 7 hours north of New York, sort of. Not really, but at least it gives you some sort of geographic
Canada.
reference.
All right, hold on, I'm looking it up. I need to know these things.
2 hours from Montreal. 4 hours from Toronto.
Oh, yeah, that's east.
Next to a Great Lake.
Yeah. No, that's very east.
that happens to have our province's name on it. Yeah.
That's incredibly east. Yeah. Nice. Beautiful.
East of what? That's relative.
East of Winnipeg, east of Vancouver.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Is that all you know about Canada?
That's all I know. I know it.
There's a lot of things west of Vancouver. To all our people of Vancouver,
No,
David,
not really.
that.
There's an ocean.
Kids, stay in school. Geography is important.
Tony wait, that voice. Oh, no, that was Jason making fun of me. Tony Mobley, how you doing, sir?
I am great, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you. And did you see Talalak is here in the Zoom with us?
Yes, I did.
Hey, Talalak. Nice to have you here also.
Hi there. Nice to see you.
Beautiful background and everything that Tony has there. Looking great. Mr. Drinkwater, sir.
Stand easy, man. Stand easy.
I salute you.
Welcome from your mother country, great Americans. We, this week, discovered a small script of music written for the monks to sing in their hallowed cathedrals. And it's only twice as old as your country.
Okay, I can top that because my wife and daughter right now are in Israel, and that's like 10 times as old as our country. So there you go. And your country for that matter. Who else is here? Oh, we have no meters, but he's here. He's hiding in the background. Talalak Roland is here. Roland is here. Hi, Roland. Okay, that's it. It seemed to me to be a flurry of little tiny releases. Maybe I'm wrong, but I kept getting lots and lots of little pop-ups like July 1st and June 30th, and Linux got a 6.4.14 and a 6.5.3 for the rest of us, and this onboarding workflow for AI Companion. I don't know. Seems like there was a lot of little stuff going on, John.
There was. But also, 2 weeks ago, there was a developers conference, which I didn't mention last weekend for a very simple reason. And that is because on Wednesday, I had a meeting with a lot of the developers in Zoom so I could try and make sense of the great announcement that was made. And I'm quite happy to go into more detail and questions, whatever, but the very, very short version is Zoom has released something called RTMS, standing for Real-Time Media Streaming. Think of this as your Zoom ISO feed for software. So instead of us guys using Zoom ISO to bring video feeds into all our lovely pieces of software and applications to do video, whatever with, RTMS is effectively a much better media server hidden within Zoom, but will bring real time. And when I say real time, I mean in meeting video streams for apps.
I don't understand.
Okay.
Because I see a post from 2024 announcing real-time media streams.
Exactly. It was announced around about Christmas time. It went live, and there have been early partners, because we know what Zoom's like. They make technology and then they bring people in to play with it. So they've had partners working on this since about Christmas, developing software and applications and basically getting it to work. But it was officially released. Actually, that's not true, because it's officially released, I think, about now, and then will be available, can be put on the marketplace in about a week's time. But
Yeah,
it's
so
been,
this came out on June 25th.
Yeah.
Zoom,
That was to time with the
live
conference.
conversations, detect deepfake audio, AI audio in real time, helping employers and employees monitor against AI deepfake generated fraud. That's not in Zoom, I guess. Okay.
No, but you have video feeds, you have live transcripts, chat, but it's not so important. It's more to do with the live video feeds and the transcripts. So those people that are writing apps that can download the video streams in real time, can take the transcripts in real time and then use it to query, and that's how they catch the AI. This is all now available in effectively a software developer kit. But the difference between before then and now with this is, before then you would try and have something like Zoom ISO bringing it all down for you, or you'd have to build your own media server to bring the video streams down from Zoom. Now that's being done for you by Zoom. All you have to do now is do the program bit to process the data as it comes into you. So this could allow these things which at the moment are running in separate apps to run within the Zoom client. So you know that little window where we have these marketplace apps, those marketplace apps could now talk to these Zoom streams and these video feeds and make use of them in a meeting. And it blows my mind of all the things I could do with it. In fact, the only problem I find is that these are C++, for those that know. It's a C++ library, because obviously it's dealing with media, so it needs a high level, or what you say, a low level computer language to process it all at a high level. And these streams are being delivered into JavaScript libraries. So there's probably going to be a point where JavaScript's not going to be good enough to do whatever they want to do with these media streams. And at that point, we will then have to have a more sophisticated programming language to process those media streams. But if I can take some examples of what you could do,
John,
if you could
you
bring
actually, I'm sorry, could you actually, for Luddites like me, could you actually give us an example of why this is so important, why it's so vital, and how it could be used?
Yeah. So if you're bringing in a video stream, you could do some of the things that we're doing in these third-party apps. Now, I hate to actually mention any of them, because if I mention one, I feel guilty I haven't mentioned all of them. But for instance, I use vMix a lot. All right, so it doesn't really matter what it is, but I use vMix a lot. And vMix then had to write a a program to be a media server to remove Zoom OSC from the loop so it could get the video into vMix. Now that Zoom OSC functionality has gone into the cloud of Zoom, so we can process video feeds coming from that Zoom, and we could possibly put them into a window. So I could actually take a video feed that's coming into Zoom, like maybe a screen share, and then put it back into my window I'm in here around me. So I could do all these video feed and production studio type functions.
So does this mean
inside a Zoom window inside the new Zoom workplace app?
So is this that Zoom ISO functionality is now built in natively? Is that what this is?
It's not. It's sort of. It's not native because it's not available to you unless you're a developer and you write some software to go between it. So there's still the step between you and the feed, but all the feeding is being done by Zoom, and all you have to do as a programmer is process what you want the feed to do. So the one you were talking about, the AI one, as I understand it, it's taking live transcripts from conversations being had in the Zoom meeting, and because it's getting those transcripts live, it can actually do AI processing on that transcript while it's going. So you know how AI Companion, we can say catch up on a meeting and it will use the transcript to understand. Well, now that transcript is coming into programmers, so programmers can now write their own code to do whatever they want to. I know there's one app out there which I, as a Toastmaster, as a public speaker, I was quite fascinated with, because there's one app out there which analyzes the speech that's being said by reading the transcript and then giving feedback on the speech to the person delivering the speech based on the transcript. Now, if you did that before this all came along, you'd have to download the audio, take it to some AI, turn it into text, and then analyze it. But now,
well,
because
Zoom
Zoom's just
does
giving
that
you,
now.
yeah, but if you were an app writer, you couldn't get access to the transcript live. So you'd have to take the audio live, convert it all, turn it to transcript, analyze the transcript, give an answer. Now Zoom's giving you everything like a further stage down the process. You can take that transcript live, you could translate it, you can analyze it, you could create feedback from it because it's coming as it's being spoken to the people.
Do you see a whole new suite of apps coming our way now?
I see a whole new suite of apps coming our way. But what's interesting for me as a developer is I already know that there are lots and lots and lots. And again, I'm not part of Zoom, so I can't give you the exact stats. But my impression, the conversations I have in the Zoom community forum for developers, and please stop putting your things in the community forum, please put them in developers community forum, because that's where we are to answer those questions. There are lots and lots of developers who have been looking at the video feed and the audio feed and the text, and they've been doing a lot of apps around this arena. So there are a lot of people who have been taking the video down, the video recordings, and then pulling them off Zoom and then process them in some way. Some people have actually been trying to get the recordings live, but they've been in minority. Now all those companies that have been taking all these recordings and processing them with AI and doing all the analysis they want to do for their corporates, post-processing, because of this, they'll be able to now do it live if they want to. They'll be able to analyze text. They'll be able to take speeches and create. You imagine. Okay, I've just thought of another example in that line. So if you take an example of somebody did a speech, and if you've got the real-time video feed, and you've got the transcripts, you could build snippets and quotes as they happen live. You wouldn't even have to wait until the speech is finished. You could be creating snippets as they happen. Yeah, Andy, there's a challenge for you. That's what we want on the next version of Production Studio, live snippets from speeches.
So that's like instant playback, what's that called in sports? Instant,
Instant replay.
Replay.
yeah, instant replay.
Yeah. But you could do instant replay with speeches. You could tell your tool to wait for certain words or phrases, and then when you see them in the transcript, all you need to do is just cut out the timestamp of that bit of the video. You'd have instant captions. I should have kept quiet about that. That's really quite a good idea, isn't it? I should have kept quiet about that. Forget I said that, guys. Forget it. No, honestly, there are so many things you can do with Zoom that if other people want to copy me, that's fine, because there's plenty of. If you had 100 people working on that project, I bet you'd end up with 200 different variations. And I'm sorry that my camera loves me so much it zoomed in on me with no prompting.
What camera? By the way, Mike, did I get rid of some of the AC in the background?
Much better.
Good. John, yeah, which one are you using? The Insta or the HubSpot?
This is the little hotspot.
The HubSpot, yeah.
The weather's turned a bit chillier today. Otherwise, I was going to actually go outside with the big hotspot on battery and zoom to you from 5 meters away. Maybe when the weather improves again, I'll do that. Because this also has a very good range as well. I can almost go down to the kitchen, make myself a cup of tea, and still here.
All right, so RTMS.
Yeah, real-time media streaming.
Turn conversations into instant, actionable insights that drive smarter decisions, faster automation, and better business outcomes. Huh.
Yeah, there was a lot of different. What would you like to say? Let me just unpin Johnny here. Different applications that even came up during the actual developer summit as well. Summit. But yeah, definitely. I know there was a few. I've sent a couple of to Frank. I've sent there was some apps that were showcased during the actual developer summit as well that were interesting. Just again, how they're taking the technology and molding it into their product that they currently are making to actually incorporate more functionality into Zoom.
I signed up for the developer conference and I went to the first few minutes of a couple sessions and then quickly realized that I was in way over my head. So I was proud to represent us there for a hot second.
David?
Yeah.
We, as developers, we felt it was over our heads as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
were.
that's why I didn't actually mention it
That's
last Friday, because until I had the meeting with the Zoom guys on Wednesday, I didn't totally understand exactly what was going on either. But I think the biggest problem was I don't think the presenters really had enough time to explain what they were doing, why they were doing it, and how they were doing it. So they just said how they were doing it, and they didn't really get enough time to explain it all.
Yeah, I felt that way as well when I was there too. That it wet our beaks, as they would say. It was enough teasing of, cool, this can be done, and this is how we did it. But we're not going to tell you. We're not going to, spend 2 hours of this is how you do it from A to Z. But we're going to spend about half hour to say, look, we can do it, and oh, here's a video of how we did it quickly. But it's not enough of, and that's why John went back and actually got more info for us.
I think Zoom developers have still got probably a couple of years before it gets to being easy, shall we say? We have a catch-up problem with Zoom. They're adding to the database of APIs and things and data you can get hold of out of Zoom. And the developers, of course, are in a rush to try and take advantage of all these new interfaces, these new programs. And I think the developers at the moment, frankly, are losing. I think Zoom's coming out with more imaginative things too quickly for the developers to catch up. And what Zoom is now trying to do is trying to make the developers' environment easier so that you don't have to have a degree in computing and you don't have to have years and years of experience to make use of the API. And then I think it will be available to more people who are, I'm not saying no non-programmers are ever going to be able to get it, but if they can bring down the complexity of actually interfacing with the Zoom applications, then more developers in corporates, because let's be honest, that's where probably their biggest market of people is going to be. More guys who are in corporate world who create apps for other bits of the corporate. If you bring down the level of understanding you need to use Zoom, it's going to encourage them to make more use of Zoom and then for integrate Zoom into more other applications. And again, I do see a lot of queries on the developers scheme about people downloading stuff and then taking stuff to interface with other stuff. I'm making this non-programming. So you might want to take a list of events and put it into your CRM, or you may want to take a list of people in your CRM and put them into an event so you can invite them all. And you want to make that transparent so that you can just click a button and an event is created and all the invites go out through your CRM for your sales system, and then they're back. I'll give you another example. It wasn't even in the RTMS this time, but it's something we've been talking about a lot, is this screen share app that they have. And this was presented at the developers conference. And hopefully by the time I finished, I'll remember what it's called. And what it allows you to do is to share a web page. So David, say you're on a banking app or something like that, and you call me hopefully through contact center, but other systems are available, but you contact me and then we're sitting on a Zoom call and I'm trying to help you solve your problem. Maybe you're a business and you want to set up some sort of new account for something. Now, during this conversation, I want to screen share with you. But of course, my boss doesn't really want me to screen share with you, and your boss doesn't really want you to screen share with me, because we both know that during this particular type of activity, there's going to be information on your screen that you're not going to want to share with a rep. And I don't just mean the picture of your daughter and all the other personal stuff on your computer. I mean, there are parts of the data in that app, personal information that you don't want, and my boss doesn't want a normal employee to see. So what Zoom have done is they've created this little code that can sit on your web page, and it understands the HTML so that it will blur out certain fields. So I can't see them, but you still can. So instead of copying your screen and taking your screen as a screen scrape copy,
That's pretty cool.
It is amazingly cool. As soon as you start thinking about what's possible, it just gets out of hand. So instead of taking these screen scrape copy, so it's not an image of your, and it's not a video image of your screen, you're actually taking the HTML web page content and rebuilding it on my browser like your browser builds it. But the difference is my browser has been told to subvert, shall we say, to blur certain content on yours. So when I say to you, put your bank details in, you can see the bank details in the box. I can't.
That's cool. So that's an app that they released, or it's an
No,
app deployment?
it's another piece of software that's part of it's not part of RTMS, but it was actually talked about during the presentation. And I expect one of our little workers in the background is now going to find it for me. If not, I'll find it in a second.
That's cool. All right. There was also, it looked like a subtle, at least it looks like it to Ray Harwood, a subtle update in Zoom Webinar with this new uh, put on hold button for your panelists. you can now put them on hold and then take them off hold, which I guess throws them back into the waiting room. It's only available if backstage is enabled, only appears when the panelist is in webinar on stage. There is no way to communicate with the panelists, no chat functionality. And once you kick them back there, when you subsequently take the take off hold button, they show up on stage with no option to bring them directly backstage from the waiting room. Oh, that's interesting. In webinar, do panelists go from the waiting room into backstage, or do they go from the waiting room directly into production? Does anyone know?
You can do it either way.
You can do either way.
You,
Okay,
you panelists, you can get to appear in backstage.
but when someone comes in, when you say allow entry or whatever the button is from the waiting room, where's the default?
Uh, they don't come into the waiting room because they're not an attendee.
Oh, I understand.
Okay. Unless they come in. I mean, sometimes they come in by mistake as an attendee, and then you have to
promote them.
upgrade
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
and you can promote them and then send them to backstage. But they should appear in backstage directly if they are if they're a panelist. I'm just going and ah because I'm trying to remember. I believe the web version is now caught up, and that happens for them as well.
But once they've been on stage, if you put them on hold, it does sort of make sense that when you bring them back, when you take them off hold, that they will be back on stage again. Has anyone seen this? He's not sure if this is actually new or if has anyone seen this before? I haven't. But I never use webinar, so I'm not sure.
Robert was making a comment that he's saying by default into backstage. By default, you go into backstage, no waiting room.
Right. Okay.
And I've just dropped the link in if you want to share it on YouTube. It's called Co-Browse, that feature of sharing a web page and obscuring things.
Done so?
All right, let's see. Co-browse. Configure Zoom co-browse. It has to be through Contact Center without full screen sharing. Yeah. That's usually ridiculous. Wow. Campaign management. In the navigation menu, click Contact Center Management, then Campaign Management. On the right side, add campaign, embed web tag. Click Copy web tag to copy this code and add it to your site. Huh. Yeah, go ahead.
So, John, do you think this is a sort of feature that eventually might trickle into other Zoom products?
What, the co-browse feature? Yes, Frank, I think the co-browse feature would be really useful. I mean, education, I think there's probably a million places you can make use of this, isn't there? If you want to help the students without sharing stuff, you could. Yeah, I think this is a really clever idea, and I could see it working at 3 levels. So you could maybe have in the education space, the student can share stuff with you, and maybe some of it is using the co-browse. You can't see it,
right?
But maybe there's another level of doing it. So you, as the professor or the teacher, whatever, can see the information. But if you then shared it with the rest of the class, maybe then some of that is obscured as well,
right?
So that the student isn't sharing all their personal information to all the other students.
So
yeah, I think it's a clever idea.
Besides, direct education, universities have lots of student support activities, administrative functions, where you may need to share a screen with a colleague, with a student, with somebody, and there's sensitive information you'd like to blur out. So I could just for other purposes too, and I'm sure that that goes outside the education realm. Like, it makes sense for everybody to have this ability. But I also know, premium features sometimes don't always trickle into the lower end tier products, right?
But maybe I'm misunderstanding, but this is not, you can pick a part of your screen and then apply a blur. This is, it will see certain things that you sort of hard code into it, and then it will automatically.
Okay, so do you understand CSS? You understand what CSS is?
No.
CSS?
Cascading style sheets, yeah.
Okay, so CSS, cascading style sheets, thank you, Frank, is the style commands that work on web pages. So that's what tells a web page what size all the different fonts are and of all the different elements and where they all sit, etc., etc. The way co-browse works is that you specify some IDs. So when you build your web page is built with some ID commands inside the web page, and co-browse uses them as pointers for what it needs to obscure. So that's the way it works.
Yeah.
So to answer Frank's question, this could work in loads of places.
Yeah, I could see that working in a lot of like our student information system. We have people who can code in that sort of thing for sensitive areas, and then this could take those ID specific fields and obscure them if that's what you want.
And yes, I'm sure Zoom want to make some money out of it, and their primary use is for co-browses, obviously in contact center, because they want contact center customers to be able to use this tool to make a better experience inside Zoom. That's fine. But as far as the complexity and the infrastructure costs of rolling this out, perhaps to education, sorry Zoom, but it's not really that complicated. It's just really neat and a clever idea.
I'm sure there would be a fee though.
There may well be, but it's certainly got a lot more legs now it's come out as an idea.
Frank, you, I think, shared this AI companion onboarding workflow change into the Discord. I think you did, at least.
Yeah.
What is, we don't have access to it yet. It won't be out until after July 6th. Can you walk us through what this is?
Not really.
Okay.
I vaguely remember posting it, and I've sort of forgotten what the thrust of it was.
I got it for us. So with the AI companion onboarding workflow, users have the option to use the help wizard to set up AI companion in their meetings. This onboarding workflow is designed to simplify how users can enable new and existing AI companion features by the way, I can't stand this the name AI companion. I wish they had a better name. By choosing when AI companion is started in their meetings, who can ask meeting questions with AI companion, who the meeting summary is sent to, and more. After the setup, users can edit their choices anytime in the Zoom web portal.
So AI companion manifests itself in a lot of spots in Zoom now. And there's a lot of little tick boxes you have to turn on either in the admin side or as a user in your own personal settings. And they're confusing to a lot of people. So I think, based on what that statement was, I think they're going to have some kind of, not clippy, but who knows what they're going to have, right? But
that's so funny. That's exactly what I thought.
Something to guide you through, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So does this mean that it'll almost be like a template that you can set up how you want AI companion to operate, generally speaking, and then you can edit it in the Zoom web portal?
Until they release it, who knows how it's going to appear or what it does. Maybe it's have you ever gone to a Zoom test meeting? They have the permanent server that hosts test meetings, and it prompts you how to do the settings, especially if you're having issues.
I have.
Oh, okay. So maybe try that sometime during Zoom Test Kitchen. It's interesting.
Hold on, wait a second. So
back in the old-fashioned video conferencing days, where you use Polycam or whoever, Polycom or somebody else, there were always meetings that anyone could join to test their equipment. Zoom continues that tradition with web-based video conferencing. So there's a test meeting you can always join. And I'm sure it's unique for you. It's not the same meeting. Other people won't be joining the same meeting as you. It instantly spins up a meeting for you, and then it has a GUI or a walkthrough to help you configure your Zoom setup. If so when people are having problems, quite often I'll say it's probably user error. Why don't you go try the Zoom test meeting and see if it gives you the prompts to get your audio configured or your video camera configured.
So if you go to, if you just Google for Zoom test meeting, for me at least, the first link that comes up is join a test meeting. And then if I click join, now I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to show this to you, but I'll try because it's actually going to have me.
Yeah, it might fight for your camera because you're
What's interesting
you're
is
already in
that,
a meeting, right?
so I did it while you were talking. So now I'm in what looks like two meetings at the same time. I don't quite understand that. You can still see my screen, right?
Yeah, you're doing the Inception thing though.
Yeah, but it's just
Too bad you're not in the office with your multiple computers you can log in from.
yeah, no, I can't, unfortunately. But let me see
Is
if
it not a web meeting that it started for you, David? Is that why you got to?
well,
it's
see,
the
I
web
don't
browser.
think it's a web meeting though, because it looks like it's in a client, that's the weird thing that I don't quite understand.
Maybe revisit it in a week or two when you're back at your normal
Yeah.
setup. But I can basically tell you what it does. So you enter this empty meeting, and it'll tell you, speak a few words. And if you can't hear your microphone, prompts will show up saying, try adjusting your microphone, and it'll give you a drop down menu of your microphones, and try
I'm
adjusting your camera.
testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm not getting any prompts here. It can hear me. I know that because I can see the audio moving, but oh well. Yeah,
It's especially helpful for people who are very new to Zoom and they're not sure if Zoom is not working or they just haven't configured their system properly.
right.
Also, where you can use this is if you've got minimum version control in your admin portal, then it can also trigger that before they actually have to come to the real meeting.
Say that one more time.
So if you set up on your portal that there's minimum version control, don't join the meeting unless you have Zoom version 6.5.10. And then you send them the test link, then it'll check for that as well, which will give them an opportunity, depending upon if you've ticked the little box, prompt to update. But potentially they could solve that problem before, 3 minutes before showtime, and they're like, I can't get in, it's asking me to update my machine.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Zoom also announced that they were making some changes to the fast, slow upgrade cycle.
Yeah, I
Is
dropped
this
that
what you
in Discord,
posted?
David.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
right. Mike pointed it out, yeah.
Breaking news. I love it when Mike drops things in. It's breaking news. Breaking news from Zoom regarding the scheduled update to slow and prompted versions. Do you want to walk us through this, Mike? Mike?
Sure. So basically, the per posting, and the reason I did breaking news was that I ended up getting email update from Zoom, so they actually send that out via status.zoom.com. So that's where I get a lot of the breaking news info, especially when it comes to that stuff. That one specifically is talking about the again, it's not the, is it the fast or is it the slow one? I think I found that it was slow, and it was also the, let me just pull that up here. That was in status.
I'm a little confused by your post, actually. I don't quite. It says slow tracks channel updates, then it gives us 6.4.12 basically.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
prompt updates?
So basically, the slow fast update is a setting that the admin can configure, or I think end users can too. You can have Zoom client not update as quickly to remain stable, or you can have the most cutting edge Zoom where it may not be as stable.
Right. So here.
So do you want to immediately update the minute there's a new update for Zoom, or do you want to delay and lag behind?
Right. So if you go into your Zoom app settings under general, the very first thing that you see is your up, well, not the very first. You've got theme and stuff and navigation bar, but then you've got update app automatically and then slow or fast.
Yeah, that's great if you're an individual user. If you're part of a managed organization with lots of Zoom clients, there's ways, depending how you deploy Zoom, like maybe using MSI, you can set the flag so that it's deployed the way you want it to be deployed, and the users don't have a choice in the matter. I also think on the back end of Zoom, I could override some people's personal preferences if I wanted to. But we just use minimum version to enforce people being where we want them to be at
Right.
specific time points in the year.
Yeah, I don't actually see any interesting on personal accounts. I don't see any settings for changing the
Yeah.
update schedule.
So we do deploy using MSI to all the company-owned
What is
machines.
MSI?
Microsoft. I can't remember the last letter. I always forget it. It's basically when you deploy the package. Usually we do it over the network to all the computers on the network that are company-owned. The person who sets up the payload, the package, there's a bunch of flags that you can say, I want these settings to be a certain way. And when you deploy it over the network, it installs itself with those settings into the target computers, and the end users have no say in whether or not they can. If you set the flags, they can't override them. So if you say you're going to be on the fast or the slow, that's how it's going to be for you, and you don't get a choice in the matter.
Gotcha.
And David, what it'll end up doing is it'll actually end up where you saw the fast and slow option. It'll gray it out. It'll be there. You'll see which one you're on, but that will be what they call organizational controlled, right? This feature has been modified by the organization that you're with.
And I think Microsoft Installer is what MSI stands for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
fact,
and again, it's just flags that you would actually put in at the actual when you're actually running that MSI, or when in Frank's case when we're talking about network installs, as it sends it across to the different machines, it's got variables at the end of the actual file name after the file name that kick in.
Flag sounds so fancy. It's just basically
in some ways,
yes or no,
Right. In some ways, it's like the lock buttons on the admin settings page.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. If I click lock here, then none of my users in my org can change this.
There's other behaviors you can specify as well besides binary choices. There's other choices you can make.
Nice.
But what I noticed that was quite interesting with this is that a lot of it is 6.4 related version wise.
What are we in now? We're 6.5, right?
Yeah. But again, for those people, as we brought up previously, that are still want to hang on for dear life with version 5.
Well, that time's coming to an end because the global update policy, you can only lag 9 months behind the current release, right?
Yeah, we're 6.5.3 at this point. So
it's a little gentle nudge coming from Zoom to go for all those people that are in, 5 and barely 6.0. You got to get up to 6.4.
why would anyone still be in 5? I don't understand.
Oh, a lot of people hate the new Zoom. And they hate
I mean, there are things I don't like about it either, but
Zoom Workplace. They hate it. There's people who absolutely hate it. They don't want anything to do with all the suite of functions. They want one application. They want it to stay that way forever, and they're dragging their heels. But a lot of them don't realize. I actually know people who go and get the older installers. What they don't realize is eventually they're going to be pushed onto the new version, whether they like it or not.
Huh. John, go ahead.
Yeah. Somebody out there, because I don't want to do it, somebody out there just create a web version of Zoom, just hide all the other buttons, and they'll have their old version. Maybe they will not even notice.
Which takes us back to the RTMS today. That could actually be done now. And everybody on YouTube doesn't see this, but David is pondering like crazy now.
No, sorry. What I'm thinking is, sorry about that. No, what I'm wondering is, uh, doing that the same thing as building a client based on the SDK? Because, for example, right
Yes,
now, apps,
correct.
right, apps are not part of
No,
the
no, no,
SDK.
correct. No. Sorry, I think you're going in two directions here. So let's talk about two things. There are apps and there are marketplace apps.
I'm not talking about marketplace apps.
Okay, so an app as in something sitting in a browser window that does something.
Like vMix. vMix uses
Yeah,
the Zoom SDK to build
yes,
Zoom into but what it can't do is it doesn't have, if you use Zoom through vMix, you don't have access to Zoom apps, meaning the marketplace apps, because
correct,
they're not available in the SDK.
correct.
So I guess what I'm wondering is if these folks want a dumbed down version of Zoom, they should just use a Zoom ISO or Zoom OSC or any.
Well, no,
Oh,
they can use the browser version of Zoom.
they don't want any of those things. What they want is what I would call Zoom Classic.
Yeah.
We should patent that, and someone smarter than me should write a client that mimics the interface of what they want and strips out all of the. Even though it still exists on the Zoom servers, they don't see it. That would probably pacify them.
Yeah, that could be done because you can create a browser version of Zoom and you can go two ways. You can go from the bottom up or the top down. So the bottom up is you start with an empty browser, you put whatever you want in the browser, and then you can take Zoom components like video and gallery view and buttons and you can put them in. Or the top down view is you start with a full version of Zoom browser version, and then you basically just get a mallet and you knock out all the bits you don't want. From
It
what
just
I understand of the chat data has not changed. So you could actually rebuild the chat data in a browser window to look like the old version. Because if you go and save chat, you will notice that the text you get is exactly the same as it's always been. It's just at the moment it's being rearranged in a new way. And by the way, yes, Zoom are looking at the chat, and don't be surprised when they bring out a new version sometime soon to try and mitigate some of the problems that people are having.
If they would just put some,
just as a guess, I don't know.
sure,
just
yeah,
a guess.
just a guess. But even if they just had a setting that you could adjust to say, behave in the older fashion or I embrace the new fashion, it would make a lot of people happy.
I need to take a couple of weeks off to make a lot of people happy.
I guess I don't I use the regular Zoom client and I just ignore all the other stuff. Like I never use the other stuff. And so I don't know, that just seems like such a silly thing to be upset about.
With respect, David, you don't just use human client because you use marketplace apps. So you
Not
are.
really.
I mean,
No.
we're effectively using even the YouTube channel creator is effectively a marketplace apps. It's a piece of software which is added into
So
Zoom
they
to
don't
give it
want that. They
functionality.
don't want access to any, they just want to be able to meet, period.
They want to be able to turn on and off their camera, turn on and off their microphone,
Okay.
and hit leave. That's
and
it.
and chat in
Yeah, they want chat too.
In the old-fashioned way.
in the old-fashioned way. Yes, they don't want the tab chat. And I actually am very fearful of September when I have to deal with the ire of many people, because in this meeting we have 13 people. Maybe on a really busy Zoom test kitchen there might be 20 people. Even 20 tab chats at the top gets unmanageable. But imagine having 200 or 300 people in your meeting, all private messaging you. You can't deal with it. It's unmanageable. At least when it was linear and it was scrollable and you could see, oh, this is private, this isn't, this is private, this isn't. It was much more functional for someone who's doing a one-to-many meeting.
We have to be careful what we ask for, because we asked for, hey, I'd love to be able to have a back channel chat with just certain people or groups. When we asked for it, they gave it to us, and then it.
But user experience can be done a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to just be this way. Maybe this wasn't a good implementation.
Yeah. No, agreed.
And of course, we also experimented last week too, that threw the wrench into this too, is that breakout rooms is still the old chat. not the new chat
For now.
for now. Exactly. Oh, and Mr. Paskin will be right back with us. Okay, so no, we're not going to commercial, honest. So we're staying here. So any questions from the YouTube community? You guys have been doing well. I'm going to check the point count soon. So let's see if you have any other questions or comments this week for the July 4th edition of Zoom Test Kitchen.
So I'm going to throw a little educational pedagogy at you. And
At me. All right.
yeah,
go
and
for it.
what this is called in education is gamification. When you have like leaderboards or awards and things, it's a way of getting people more engaged. So what you're doing by saying, okay, we're gonna check in a while, you're gamifying to get engagement, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. We've definitely tried to do our best to gamify the YouTube chat so that I can get a little more responses from our Zoom Test Kitchen community so that you can offer us more questions as we're speaking live.
There may or may not be a YouTube chat that says gamification in it.
Yes, and this was the person that actually made that comment earlier into YouTube chat. Go ahead, Dalek.
No, I just wanted to point that out.
But yes, and I have this feeling that Mr. Drinkwater also knows about gamification in Zoom.
I have been spending quite a lot of time with people who have created gamification systems within Zoom, and I'm looking at them, and there are actually quite a lot of API calls within Zoom which are suitable for gamification. Let's take the takeover of last meeting with all the call logging of people and the time they're on live and chatting and whatever. Those APIs have been in Zoom, and Zoom was so incredibly overloaded with apps that were taking the amount of time that you were speaking and turning it to scores and stuff like that they actually made it part of Zoom. It's now, that is actually part of Zoom. But there's lots of things like that about counting the number of times that people, like my app, for instance, counting the number of times that people put their hands up. You can monitor and count all the reactions. As Mike tries to get himself kicked by my app by putting his hand up too many times. There are, all those things are available in Zoom. So you could sit there and count them. I mean, Frank could count the number of times that each of his students interact with or without the tutor speaking to them.
I used to use a different web conferencing platform, and it actually gave you a report at the end of the meeting on every single person, and they had a algorithm that calculated a score for your engagement, and it would break it down like how many times did you react, how many times did you put your hand up, how many times did you appear on screen, and it would give you a score for all of that, and some people would actually use that score as part of a participation mark or something.
Tony, did you have a gamification question?
We're in the gamification kitchen.
Actually, I was going to ask another question about last night in our house of worship experience. I noticed that everyone in the meeting looked extremely good, and I was just wondering, did Zoom possibly update just regular meetings for everyone?
That would have been very kind, but I don't think so.
Okay. I was curious. It was people were unusually looking good last night, and it was really strange for me.
Maybe your internet provider gave people better upload speeds or something in your neighborhood.
Tony, I used to have that issue. I've heard it down to too much communion wine, but that was a benefit of being in the choir, that we had to finish off the wine at the end of the service. Otherwise, the priest was compelled to drink it all. So that was always interesting. But
so Tony, was it related to video, audio quality, video quality? What did you notice?
It was video quality. Everybody was looking extremely good. And I noticed that a lot of times, um, you know, I would say that last night everybody was probably at least 720, and we are normally right around 320,
Maybe there's a person with a
340.
mobile phone who didn't join. Maybe you've got one person who joins the meeting on a mobile device that's bringing the quality of the meeting down and they didn't attend that week or something.
Maybe so. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah. Nothing officially in the notes, anyways, Tony, as of right now. Mr. Paskin, back to you.
Oh, I don't know. What else is on people's minds? Hey, Pete, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's up?
Was just thinking the other day, if you're recording to the cloud with a pro account, how long is it going to last?
What rules have you set? It's up to you. They'll stay
Well,
up there forever. Pete,
does,
they're quite happy to you to leave them up there for years because as
no, no,
soon
no,
as
no,
you
no, no,
start,
no, 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 no. That's not the question. The question is, I go live now with a pro account and I'm on for 24 hours. Will it record 24 hours?
Zoom meetings can
yes,
only go for
30.
30 hours, and then you have to start a new meeting.
30 hours. Okay. Not that I
Except,
would do that, but
except they have made exceptions to that rule in the past.
Oh, really? I didn't know. So if you contact them and say, "Hey, I need to have a longer meeting," they can make that happen.
So, yes. So it's a very strange use case. But this is at the very beginning. What was it? I wonder if it was 2020 or after. Um, in so us Jews we're a strange breed, and on certain days like Sabbath or holidays, we don't want to touch electricity. We don't want to play with, electricity. So since we couldn't all be together in our houses of worship and we were all doing this on Zoom, we needed a way for a Zoom meeting to be persistent so that I, as the rabbi or whatever, didn't have to actually touch the computer. I could just walk into the sanctuary, do my thing,
Like the elevators that just go up and
like
down
the
all day long.
Sabbath elevator. Yes,
Yeah.
same idea. So a bunch of rabbis reached out to Zoom because in that particular year, we had Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, which is a 2-day holiday. You had that plus the Sabbath on the next day. So we needed a meeting to last at least what I was at 72 hours. And they apparently made it happen. So yeah. It was actually a really cool sort of
and you recorded like 72 hours of this?
I don't know about recording.
Okay.
I don't know about recording. This is just the length of the meeting itself.
Yeah.
Pete, if you're going to record 24, 32 hours, you're going to blow your storage limit out of the water. I 20 gig is not. I've got two business, so I've got 20 gig now. I would easily blow 20 gig in half that time, if not less,
I noticed
depending how
one
much I
thing.
jump around.
I noticed one thing about storage, and a number of years ago in 2020, I got a pro account for a couple months to do some webinars. So then I reverted it back at the end of that to the free account. And I downloaded everything I recorded. And then 2021 did the same thing. The stuff I put on the cloud in 2020 was still there. Even though I said delete it, it came back. I don't know why. Doesn't really matter.
So in your account settings, you can specify how long recordings remain. And then what happens is, so for my account, they're set for 120 days. After 120 days, they get deleted. What happens is my understanding at least, is that they get flagged on the Zoom servers, and Zoom has multiple, probably thousands of servers. But the operating system of the server actually has to go and get to that file and check that it's allowed to be deleted and deleted. Sometimes they don't get around to them for a long time. So let's say you cancel your Pro account and you go, oh, I've just lost all my recordings. Zoom will usually tell you, no, if you start paying us again and use the same email account, your recordings will probably show up again. But they have some legal language in there saying they don't guarantee it, though.
Yeah, okay, all right.
According to their rules, it should be deleted after 30 days. That's what it will tell you on the website. So I didn't tell you this, but if you run 3 events one after the other, if you record event 1 and then delete it, then record event 2 and then delete it, record event 3, you can then download event 3, delete it, then you can undelete event 2 and download it, and then you can delete it again, and then you can undelete event 1, download it, and then delete it again. So you can play around. But there are people, I'm going to back up what Frank said, because there are people that have come onto the forums, on the community forums, who say, I can't get hold of this recording, etc., etc. And I always quote them the rules that technically Zoom delete them after 30 days. But I think, like Frank said, it's almost as if Zoom forgets sometimes. And maybe if you make your account inactive, Zoom just freezes all activity on that account and doesn't delete and just leaves it as a snapshot of what it was. And there are people that have resurrected accounts and found that recordings have reappeared. But the official rule is 30 days. Sorry.
Operating systems, when you delete something, generally speaking, depending on your operating system and a bunch of other variables, it flags that as space on the hard drive the operating system can write over. And the reason that data recovery software works is because quite often the operating system doesn't go right over it right away. That's why they say don't do anything new on your computer. I'm thinking maybe Zoom, they obviously have servers with operating systems. It has to actually get to those files and see if the flag says delete or not delete. It may be a long time before the server gets to that file.
Yeah. And also, too, coming from the server infrastructure of content delivery networks, again, it could be that it was, again, there's going to be constant backups that are going to be happening to offload the physical hard drives that Zoom is using, guaranteed, for archival purposes, should there be this situation. So it very well could be that when you reinstated, Pete, that it went to a backup that, even though you told it to delete it, it says, oh, Pete's back and he's pro now. So now I should be bringing back his backups that he may or may not have gotten rid of, because there may or may not have been a flag that said delete, and it may or may not listen to that flag or feature. But yeah, so what John is saying is the official numbering on that. And if it's around and you're lucky, then you'll get access to it. Tony,
can I just
throw
in the flip side? Sorry, can I just throw in the flip side? I know a guy who had a $16,000 bill with Zoom because he was recording a weekly show and he never bothered to delete any. He just left them all on there, and Zoom was quite happily billing him for all the space he was using up, and he wasn't watching his accounts very well until a review at the end of the year. There was £16,000 worth of recording bills to pay, and then he wasn't happy.
Ouch.
For obvious reasons. So keep an eye on it.
They get you on the recording. There's no doubt about that. Tony, do you want to jump in?
I wanted to ask, I'm in the meeting for the House of Worship on 2 computers and an iPad. Frank, when you said that the phone brings down the meeting, does the iPad bring down the meeting as well?
I think I recall it's mobile devices, so yeah, I would imagine an iPad probably would too, but I don't know 100%. but I know phones, like mobile phones do, but
My understanding is mobile and or browsers. Connecting through browsers.
Okay.
I
And so
didn't
that
I didn't
goes
think I've
that
ever heard browsers before.
I believe it's
I
browsers
have,
also.
Okay.
isn't it like whoever has the lowest resolution or something like that will cause everything to go smaller?
Yeah, well, that's the reason mobile phones bring it down is
Yeah, but
The
not if
Zoom's.
that mobile phone is in gallery or that iPad is in gallery. Because
Because then
that's on
it's
the
not
that's
pulling. Then it's
yeah,
not. Then it's
that's on
not
the
the
lower
parts.
360p side. So you
That's
don't have
interesting.
not pulling you're not pulling the pinned or active speaker.
Right.
And so it's not dropping it down to its lowest ability, which is 720.
Oh, I had never thought of that. That's a really good call. I mean, not that we have any control over how people view the meetings, but I see, but as soon as I spotlight myself, it puts them into, they would have to physically go back and
Yeah, if it's
switch.
spotlighted, then
Yeah,
they would necessarily be looking at
right,
it in the active speaker version.
right. And are we right to log? Do you know, are we right about browsers also?
I'm
It,
not sure.
so if you're joining me via the web client, but the meeting host is using the Zoom, you might be able to see the host video on 720p.
And that might have been what made everything look crisp for you, Tony. Is I don't know, were you in gallery in your iPad?
I was not. Actually, most of the meeting I was spotlighting um, as many people as I could in terms of them speaking and
Yeah, so
the.
that'll pull it down to 720p if there's an iPad on there.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. So yeah. Um, requirements for HD video for meetings. Standard 720. You have to have a pro business education or enterprise account. Full screen meeting window on Zoom desktop app. Zoom desktop app for Windows, Mac, or Linux. Global minimum version. Zoom mobile app for Android or iOS global minimum version. For full HD 1080p, you have to have Pro Business, Settings must be enabled by Zoom support. You have to have a certain type of CPU, i7 quad or higher, Zoom desktop app or Windows or Mac. Zoom desktop app for Windows or Mac, and virtual backgrounds must be disabled to send outgoing full HD. So it looks to me like you can get 720 on a mobile app, or this doesn't really talk about in in the browser, but I believe it's also in the browser
But virtual backgrounds will do it too.
and the virtual backgrounds.
So maybe someone wasn't using a virtual background that normally does. I don't know.
There are so many different factors to the quality, and um, it, Doc Rock, who does a lot with the Ecamm community, he's also on Mac Break Weekly from time to time, and he kind of rails against people getting upset at Zoom or harping on 720 versus 1080p. He says, first of all, the difference between 720 and 1080 is not, it's not night and day. It's noticeable, but it's not night and day. And the second thing he says is, look, it is what it is. If you're putting out good content and you're making sure that if you are showing things that are, if you're showing text on your screen, make sure it's large text, things like that. If I look at Frank in 720 or if I look at Frank in 1080, I mean, Frank's going to be just as beautiful either way.
You could have gone the other way with that quite easily, but
It's wouldn't have done that. It's when it comes down to text and things like that that you're throwing up on screen, I think. But they're just
I have one more if I may. We are exclusively doing invitations to the worship service through text, and I've been trying to get them to shift to email because I think that would give us a lot more opportunity to reach out. But they are reluctant because the ease factor in terms of people just clicking on the link in the text. And I was just wondering, the way in which Zoom Test Kitchen email is set up, that if you, once you get the email, you can just click on the Zoom link and be able to come into the meeting. Is there a way that, is there a specific software that allows you to do that in the email?
Over to you, David.
Is there a way to, in an email with a, is this a custom Zoom URL?
No, it's just a regular Zoom meeting link to the
Usually
House of Worship Zoom.
If I might be misunderstanding the question, but the Zoom Workplace does exactly that. You click on the link and it opens it. Am I missing something about your question?
Maybe I'm in error in asking the question, but for some reason, the individuals that I'm working with are not receptive to joining the Zoom meeting in an email. They always want it in a text message. And I thought that
It's
there
probably
was
because they're
something.
coming in on their phones.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would, if they get a text message, they want to just, I guess, click it, which they could do from an email also, but if they live in
But
text.
not as, you know, if I think about my father using an iPhone, he doesn't look at his email on his iPhone. He just looks at texts, if that.
So Tony, what you're looking for then is some sort of SMS service so that you could actually send out an hour before you are starting X meeting an SMS message to those people so that if they click on the link that's in the SMS, it'll get them into their, now take into consideration, this will take them into their Zoom client that's on the phone, which automatically means that they're not going to be more than 720. So that for sure will answer your 720p question versus 1080p if they're coming in on the phone or tablet.
So isn't the SMS still a text message?
Correct, but that's what they're asking you to send for you to send instead of it being an email. Correct?
Yes, but I think it's important for us to move toward email, and I'm trying to figure out a way for us to do it, and for it to be easy for people that are my age and older to just jump into the. And the other thing is that we typically do the text messages the day before service, and so I don't have any problem with changing that part of it, doing the email the day before. But I just wanted to be, first of all, more inviting than a text message in terms of the worship service. And
Right.
then at the same time, be able for them just to click on the link and come into the meeting, and then
Yeah.
then come into the holding area like the Zoom Test Kitchen.
Yeah. So the service that I use, which I think is different than David's, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, the service that we love to use a lot with when we send out emails, more specifically in our case, because our emails are going to dealers and to news agencies and such, we use MailChimp. And again, it allows you to have people sign up and such. That one is there. David, I think you use a different service, correct?
Mine actually, I just for bigger things, I've used Constant Contact. For Zoom Test Kitchen, I actually just use Wix. It's built into the Zoom Test Kitchen website. It's just kind of an add-on. They have email marketing that I use.
But that sounds like what you're basically trying to do, Tony, is you're trying to have everybody sign up for an email newsletter, quote unquote. And the newsletter then can also be invitations to Zoom meetings. And again, like David has done with us, because you're in that exclusive newsletter list, David's also put the button in there so that you could actually click on the join us in Zoom. But again, in that button is hiding the actual Zoom meeting information that automatically gets into our meeting.
The only thing is, Tony, is that um, it, it's really hard to push people to the system that you want to use. It's much from a consumer, a satisfaction point, customer satisfaction point. It's much better to try and create multiple ways for them to access on whatever systems they're already on. And there are services you can use to send SMS messages and things like that. It's just something to consider. We got 3 hands up who I think also want to chime in. Pete, Jason, and John, go for it.
I believe every cell phone carrier has an email address where you can send an email to that phone number at whatever service, and it'll be received as a text message. It's been around for a long time, actually. Not a lot of people know about it or use it, though.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You got to check with your cell phone carrier on what they are, and an easy search online, you can find that information. So, in fact, they did that with pagers when pagers were still around. You could send a text message through an email address to someone's pager.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Nice.
Tony, what's the
yeah.
workflow when you're saying you want to? So you've got 2 different kinds of people. You've got those that have joined in the past and will come back, and then you've got prospects out there that you want to come in. So there's 2 different workflows there. So first, let's talk about the people that have attended and you want them to come back. What is that workflow? You got some folks joining on a computer and some folks joining on a phone, I'm supposing.
We actually have one individual that's actually joining on the landline. So it's a little bit of everything. But what we are sending out right now is a basic text message. It has the name of the church. It has the time of the meeting. It has who is the speaker for this particular Sunday. It has the time. It has the Zoom link. That's pretty much it. And that's what
Is this
goes
a
out.
recurring meeting? It's the same meeting number every week?
Yes, it's the same meeting number.
So for those that have joined Zoom in the past, they could just go into their, as soon as they click on their Zoom app, and in the history, we'll have your church meeting in there, and they could just pick that. Even if they never got the text, or a carrier pigeon, or an email, or fireworks, they can just go in their history and click on it and be taken right to the room. Do you have a waiting room as part of this meeting?
No, once you put in the passcode, you come into the meeting. And the other thing is that I think that most of them are coming in on the browser and not the app.
Not the app. So
you know what, Tony. So I have a crew of in my school when we have parent teacher conferences. I need all the parents to come into my Zoom meeting, and that only happens twice a year, so they never remember. And so what I did is I own the URL for our school. It's called Gon Sinai, and I just created a subdomain, gonsinai.org/Zoom. And when they go to that link, it just takes them right to the Zoom meeting. So, mychurch.com or mychurch.org, whatever your church's name is, /Zoom. And then maybe in addition to that, you can either text that out, email that out, or just put a button right on your church's website that says join Zoom.
And you can do the same thing on Facebook, assuming
Right.
that
I mean,
your
the
folks'
problem with that
Facebook.
is that then, there's you're telling the whole world that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I would consider a waiting room, and then to my other audience that I was asking you about, the prospects, I would just put a registration up in front so that you're collecting their information so that you can continue to reach out to them. That's the purpose that you would say on there, right? They get a link. You know who to expect so that when you see them in the waiting room, friend or foe. Because the worst thing is if your meeting isn't secured and you're sending out these text messages, anybody can bomb your meeting. And then what are you going to do? That's high risk there. So I would definitely lock that up a little bit to get an understanding of who do you expect to come, how easy is it for them to come back, and what procedures do we have in place to prevent bad actors from showing up. And that could be a button on Facebook. That can be, if you want to continue to use text messaging, that can be go into your Zoom app and click on the meeting name, My Church Weekly Worship Service, or whatever you want to call it. All of that. And then as the host of the meeting, I like the waiting room because you have a pretty good feel of who to expect week after week. And if you've got a registration page for new folks, then you now also have an expectation of who could show up new this week. What is their name? So that when you see that in the waiting room, you can bring them in.
Thank you. Thank you all.
John, go ahead.
I agree with everything that's been said already. If they're coming in through a web page, through the browser, then they could save that link that's in the browser and it will be in their shortcuts and they can get in straight away. As I said, I agree with everything you said before, but what I would do and what I've started doing with some of my groups is using the new breakout room option. So you create a breakout room and you admit all the people that come in, and the ones that you're not sure about, you admit them directly into the breakout room, and then you can go on camera, have a conversation with them, welcome them to your church. And if they are suspicious or whatever, they're probably just going to run away as soon as they do that. So that will give you the protection before they come back into the main room and seen by everybody else. Do you have to make sure that your breakout room settings don't allow them to leave the breakout room and go into the main room? So it has to be your control, but admit people you are suspicious of into a breakout room. You can deal with them and then put them elsewhere. As far as the links are concerned, I'm now on Business Plus, and when I create a meeting now in Business Plus, I can actually add the name of the invitees. This might not be applicable to you, but could be applicable to other people. If you are using one of these scheduling apps like Calendly, other scheduling apps are available, then in a lot of those you can schedule a meeting and then you can just include the email addresses of everybody else, and the scheduling app will then send out all the Zoom invites to them all and get them out that way. So that's another avenue that you could look at, or other people with similar questions could look at. But with all of this, if you are going to use repeated meetings are the most dangerous because you're relying on the same link over and over again, and it only needs to be lost, abused once, and it's out there, and then anybody can get in. Whereas if you're using new links every time, then people have to have the latest link. And one other little app that might be good for getting people, which if they're not computer literate might find easier to use, is WhatsApp. You can create a WhatsApp group, and then you just post the link into the WhatsApp group, post the news into the WhatsApp group. Don't expect them to have conversations in there. It's just an information store. And with WhatsApp, you can read it on a desktop device because you can link WhatsApp to your desktop, whether it's Mac or PC. And of course, it also works in phones and mobiles as well. So WhatsApp, again, is another nice, easy way for people who don't understand computers so much to just click on a link and it will take them into whatever version of Zoom they're running or whatever device they're running.
WhatsApp is also international friendly, which is a nice perk. If down the road you want to try and broaden your audience to include folks that are outside of the US, WhatsApp is in many cases, a very international, user-friendly tool. Unlike
Thank you all.
SMS.
Tony, one other thing, just make sure if you're using Zoom that the recurring meeting is not in your personal meeting room or anyone's personal meeting room, that it's actually a meeting with a session number. Because then that way you have all those options. If you put it in meeting room, a lot of these options are stripped out.
Like what options? Because I do everything in my PMI.
You have less options in terms of your registration, the reporting. You do have a waiting room. I don't recall if in the chat to the waiting room, if that's also another place that is a little different in PMI.
I can definitely chat to the waiting room.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't find that there's a lot that's missing, if much of anything, actually, from the PMI. But the one thing about using the PMI is that the settings that you set for every other meeting that you do don't always apply to PMI. Like PMI has its own separate settings, and it's just the most frustrating thing in the world to me, because I get it. I understand that I'm the one who's using it wrong, but it's really frustrating. And not only that, but not every time, but sometimes when you update, those settings are not sticky. So.
Yeah, registration's the big one. Oh, and Dave, on the when you use your PMI, does the chat policy apply?
I'm not sure that I even have a chat policy in place, but I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Tony, that's another thing, is make sure you apply a chat policy in the 1 in 1,000 chance that you get a Zoom bomber.
Okay. I'm actually going to pull that up. Chat. So,
So the consensus is that we need to not have the same meeting ID and passcode for every meeting. Is that correct?
I think for your ease of use, you would, but you would consider how long you leave that meeting recurring. Is this a 90-day recurring meeting, a 6-month recurring meeting, a 1-year recurring meeting? Obviously, if it's the same meeting number, it makes it easier for people to rejoin. But then it also makes it easier for your Zoom bomber to rejoin. So you just kind of have to figure out, okay, obviously I need my people to attend. I need it to be easy for them to attend so that they show up. So now if a Zoom bomber comes in, what else do I have in place to make sure that that person doesn't ruin the experience for everybody else?
You don't have to share the link with the password, Tony. You can share the link to the meeting and keep the password quiet. So people need to know what the password is to get in. That's another way of controlling, people. You share the link so everybody knows what the link is, because it's like splurged over all your pages, your Facebook, whatever, but you keep back what the password is so that only people know you will know what the password is. And then the link can change, but your password can stay the same.
For what it's worth, I'm not sure that if you're sharing links, I'm not sure that and you're embedding the password in the link, I'm not sure that a password, it really adds any protection to your meeting, because a link is a link is a link. And if you click on it, you click on it. So what I do is, again, I do this wrong. I fully recognize that, but I use a PMI for almost every meeting that I do. I do not have a password on there because, again, I'm just sending people a link. So whether the password's embedded or not doesn't matter. But I have a waiting room, and no one comes into my meetings unless I let them in. And if I don't know who you are, if I'm not scheduled, now I'm not running a church, and that's a little different. I recognize that. But, if you know who's showing up, then I think the waiting room is the way to go. If you don't know who's showing up, then you want to have a mic who sits there and watches and messages the people in the waiting room or lets them in, but has them go to a breakout room or something like that. But
And I'll be specific. Mike, he wasn't talking about a microphone. He was talking about me.
Yes, I was.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah, as
Frank.
a matter of, yeah, and as a matter of fact, too, within the last few minutes, too, I actually had to put someone in timeout on YouTube too, which our YouTube audience probably saw that person that was asking and asking again. Mike, can you send me the link to the meeting? Ask me again and asking again, and I have Zoom questions and asking again.
Dear Zoom bombers, if you're gonna cause trouble, don't do it to the Zoom test kitchen. That really is the most silly place to try and Zoom bomb
It really is.
because not only could you be banned from the best group ever, your IP address could be banned, your machine could be banned, and your Zoom account can be banned. All these things are possible in Zoom, and if we don't know how to do it, you can imagine no one else would. But it's amazing how banned you can be if you bomb Zoom. You would have to buy a new Zoom account, you'd have to buy a new machine, and you'd have to change your internet provider. That's how strongly you can get punished by Zoom. So stop it.
Really?
It's not worth it. Yes.
I didn't
All
know
this
that.
information. We have discussions like this on the developers forum quite a bit because you get developers come along and say, "Oh, how do I know who's on my meeting? I need to know who's on my meeting." And the Zoom answer is, "Well, you get them to register so you know who they are because they've registered." And they say, "Oh, but I want to know this." I'm like, "No, you don't get any of that information as a developer. But you can bet your bottom dollar that Zoom has all that information and makes use of it and knows. Otherwise, how would it let me, bounce around between three computers in my office and not complain? But if I left my office or I changed my internet address and I then try to log into my Zoom, I have to start getting pop-ups coming up telling me, this is not where we usually expect you to be, John. Who is this? And I have to confirm from one of my other devices that I am who I say I am. It's frightening. And I'm glad I can't tell you because it is frightening how much Zoom do know about you when you join their app, however you do it, whatever you try and do, VPNs, whatever. It is amazing how much Zoom can tell from where you are and what you are. And that's my warning to you, dear Zoom bombers. At your peril. Good luck.
Can I ask a question about the waiting room? So we have someone sitting in the waiting room right now, and we're not letting them in because we don't know who they are. And presumably we sent them a message and they haven't responded yet. Is that, Mike, is that fair?
No, I haven't been dealing with. I think we do know Jen as well, by the way.
Oh.
But
All right, just let her in.
yeah, we know.
Or him. I know
Yeah, we know
James, of
Jen.
course.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
I thought you were watching the waiting room. My bad.
no, I was busy with the YouTube bomber, not
Sorry.
the YouTube
Okay, but
potential
my
bomber
question,
that wanted to bomb Zoom.
my question is the same. So when someone comes into the waiting room and the host or co-host sends them a message via chat, they don't have a chat window. So where do they see that?
They actually do get a chat window
They
in the
do.
waiting room. Yes, it actually. So that actual waiting room welcome where your video plays, David, it actually has a side chat that pops out as soon as the chat happens.
Okay, wait. I'm going to join this meeting from another.
Sure. And I will give everybody my normal criticism because I know this Paskin David that's going to be coming in.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I have no idea how to log out of this account.
I did once create a fake meeting recording. When I had a couple of dodgy people join a meeting, I put them into a breakout room and played this recording to them. And they stayed there for 15 minutes trying to cause trouble, wondering why nothing worked.
Okay. Don't let me in.
Don't let David in.
Z.
And I will send you the integrate what I used integration. Was that word? Is that the right word? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm doing this from my phone, but it should work pretty much the same regardless.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm now in here and I'm just host has joined. We've let them know you're here. Welcome to the Zoom test. I see my cute little guy there, which I just realized the arrow that I have on there pointing is not pointing to anything on mobile. That's only on
So
okay.
David, now you
I
should see.
see. Yeah, so I see. And you know what? I could probably show this to you actually. Hold on a second. Let me put up a phone. Here we go. Okay. Phone is in use. Lock my phone to connect. Hold on. Sorry, it's making me lock my phone. So I can show this to you. Okay. Oh, so I have to join from here. So did I leave? I think I just left.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Bum, bum, bum. So now I'm coming in again because I wanted to be able to show you all. Why isn't this typing now?
You're not in there yet.
I know. It's not letting me type.
Uh-oh. I haven't banned you, honest.
Z. Huh. Did I just find a bug? Sorry. I'm using the new why is that so interesting? It's not letting me type. I don't know why. That's really frustrating. Sorry. Okay.
You might have to receive a message first. You probably can't send from the waiting
No,
room, but you can
that's not what I'm
reply.
no, I can't even get into the meeting.
Oh,
I'm not going to be able to show this to you, but that's okay. I'll just describe it. Six, join, and then I was trying to connect it to my computer so I could show it easily, which I can do in my office, but I can't here. Okay, so now I'm in the waiting room. So now I actually don't see a chat message, but I got a little.
I have not sent it yet.
No, I know. But when you
Okay.
send it, I get a little red dot indicating that there is a message for me. Again, this is on mobile.
Okay. And I'm sending it to you now.
Yep. So I now got the little red dot in the top right corner there. I'll put that in front of my face. And if I click on that, it says chat. So I can now open the chat and I've got the message right there. Sorry, that's so blurry. If you're not paying attention, you could easily miss that. I wonder if that's the same on desktop. Let me, I'm going to try and join from desktop also from another. Uh,
So as David's doing that, what I put into our chat for the panelists is what David is actually seeing. And some of you may have seen that if you came in and I don't recognize your name because you've used, as others have in the past, if you're using your company name instead of your actual personal name, I won't necessarily who you are. You might get that message from me.
okay, so so can you send me that message again, please? So this
Yes,
is
sir.
what it looks like while I'm in the waiting room. Okay, so it's much better on desktop. It's much better on desktop. On mobile, you really just get that little dot, and if you click on it, so this is great, and then I can respond. I love ZTK. Now, here's my other question. Don't do anything yet. A lot of times what I'll say is, please use your real name. At this point in the process, I can't change my name, can I? I have to
You
drop
can
out
by
of the
going to
meeting.
settings.
I can? Where?
I think, can't you?
back in your Zoom Workplace app.
Say it one more time.
In the Zoom Workplace app, the other screen that you have that shows new meeting, join, blah, blah, blah settings. Because the name is picked up when you log into Zoom. So on your Zoom Workplace app, when you log in as you or whatever name you use there, that's what carries over into that little black screen where your cursor's at now.
But when I joined, it asked me. So here, this is when I joined meeting, right? I had to put my display name in there.
Can you
That's
change it
correct.
there?
What is it? That's a good question. So what is it in the waiting room right now? What does it look like? Who's waiting in the waiting room now? I see
Oh,
TTG. All right, let
yeah.
me
So
change them. So,
TTG Productions and also David Paskin. I've got two.
right, testing OSC. Now, see, it doesn't change it. I think the
Hit
only way to
hit
change
join.
join. No, nothing.
Oh,
I
didn't
think the
change it
only
there.
way to change your name is actually to leave and rejoin.
David,
Yeah,
are you
I think you're
using?
right. The workflow is you put your name in the meeting, and then you get into the waiting
Okay.
room, and you can't go
Now,
backwards again unless you leave the waiting room and come back in again.
Yeah.
now, David, here's something important. Are you using OSC or a generic
Now, right
client?
now, I'm using OSC,
Oh,
but
That might be the limitation in there too.
I don't think so because I mean, OSC is just had an update to the latest SDKs. So
Right, but they might not have that
yeah, they might not.
functionality in there. And just to let you know, yes, I can have a full conversation with you, as you can see.
Right. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Please make sure to change your name. Right.
But the host could change his name, right?
The host can,
Yeah, you can change my name.
yes.
I really wish yeah, host renamed you to, right, change to David. Yep. Oh, that's actually a smart, that's actually a smart way to really get people's attention to change their name and you can change the name to please leave and come back in with with your real name or something like that. Because I mean, that's quite the warning there.
mm-hmm.
I really wish people could change their names. Host renamed you to please leave and come back with your proper name. Yeah.
I was listening. I was
Yeah,
typing.
that works. I mean, that really works. Leave meeting. That's fascinating. Okay. Fascinating.
So yeah, definitely if you are a person that would be an example of assisting Tony to do, to make sure that you're the Zoom bomber or the TD or whatever you want to classify your role is as, then yeah, definitely that
Where
is
did
definitely.
Frank's hair go? Oh God. I never see it pulled back that tightly. Or maybe it's just I'm used to seeing that on your head. Maybe that's what it was.
Now,
That's
now
what
Frank has to explain.
No, that's what it was. Yeah. Because he's got some luscious locks there. So he can't tell.
Jealous.
I just said you have luscious locks. Right.
All right, y'all. Happy 4th. Time for me to start cooking.
Enjoy, enjoy.
Thank you. See you next time.
You're not going to tell us what you're making?
Well,
Oh,
then
I
I'd
know
have
what's
to
on the
invite
menu.
you. Then I'd have to invite you over.
Probably something delicious.
Well, I hope. It all depends on how I cook it. But yeah, that's the plan. And I'm not going to tempt everybody. So
Stay here, Jason. It is the kitchen after all.
well,
I really should have done like barbecue for this week's image. That was silly. I don't know why I didn't. I'm a
oh,
vegetarian.
yeah, the wine pairing
That's
kind of
why I
threw
did.
me off. I was
I
like,
know,
what are we
sorry.
pairing this with?
I'm a vegetarian. I don't think about hot dogs and hamburgers.
Oh, I just didn't know what we were pairing this with.
There's lots of beautiful vegetables you can grill on a barbecue.
Oh, absolutely. I do it all the time. Veggie burgers and good stuff like that.
Bye.
See you later.
Ciao, Jason.
Oh my goodness.
We've got a large audience that are watching you, David.
Watching me? Why are they watching me?
Well, they're watching us.
They're watching us. By the way, I just made you host.
Alrighty. And Miss Lois, of course you can join us on Zoom. And she said, please let me in.
Hi, Lois.
I will let you in, honest, Lois. I might let you watch the video if you want to watch the video for 30 seconds. Is it 15 seconds, David?
But by the way, I have gotten better at that. I now, when people come into my personal room, I now don't let them in right away. So they can watch the stupid video.
Today, you actually made me watch it 4 times. I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, it's fine. It's hilarious. I purposely did listen to the audio and let it repeat too. So I was like, okay.
I'm sorry.
You need to mimic your setup from the office at home now.
Yeah. Okay. What else do we have? It's the middle of July. It's not this is a kind of a quiet time, I guess.
Yeah, there is no official things coming up next week, are there? For workplace?
There's nothing said to be released that I can see.
Right.
Some
Yeah,
workplace have release notes.
yeah, I'm looking at that too. Lois has a question. Of course, Lois. Ask your question, please, on YouTube, either on YouTube or please join us. I haven't purposely blocked you, honest.
Mike, are you on Linux? Are you running Linux?
I do have a Linux machine, yes. Multiple, actually, yes. Go ahead.
Why?
Why do I have Linux? Why
I don't
haven't
mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, it's a genuine question. Like, what does Linux offer that Mac or Windows doesn't?
That is an interesting it's a long discussion, but let me say it this way. I'm the because the hardware is usable from the PC world, which has been dominated by Windows for decades. This also allows me to reduce my e-waste by currently what Microsoft is telling me is that now I have to buy 20 brand new machines for all my 20 new employees as of October. So if the actual software packages that all 20 employees can use are also on Linux, and the only real back end difference is a Microsoft operating system versus a Linux operating system, then the amount of e-waste that I would have to get rid of 20 machines, which there will be a lot of e-waste as of October, by the way. And here comes Lois.
But Jan, you were in the waiting room, and I thought Mike was watching the waiting room, and Mike thought I was watching the waiting room, and then you ended up just being stuck there in waiting room purgatory. I'm really sorry about that, Jan.
Oh, no problem
I
whatsoever.
apologize.
So yeah, so when it comes to Linux, as long as the applications that you use or a reasonable facsimile, because you won't have the Adobe Photoshops, but there are reasonable facsimiles of such. Like there are certain software companies that do not build on Linux, but there are certain software companies that only will build on Linux and Mac and not Windows. So there's all kinds of different variations of it's up to the software. So it basically comes down to the tool set, right? So can I still have people log into Microsoft Office 365 through the browser and do the same thing that they're doing on regular Microsoft Windows? Yes, because a browser is a browser is a browser. Linux has Chrome, Linux has Chromium even, which is the back end of all the different Chrome-based browsers out there, which is everything but Safari and Firefox-based ones. So again, Linux has got all that. The Zoom client is there. For meetings, sure. For webinars, I've been on webinars. I've had no problem using the Linux client on webinars. I haven't done anything host-wise based on Linux using a Linux client as of yet. But that doesn't mean it can't.
Why do you think Zoom built a Linux client? Are there a lot of people out there that need it?
The official numbers that I saw earlier this week is that Linux makes up when it comes to the different operating systems. Linux right now, well, Windows is starting to do a slow decline within the last 2 years. There's been a lot of hatred between the debacle during Windows 10, and then of course Windows 11. Of course, Jason and I have talked about this quite often on the Zoom Test Kitchen, and it's not getting any better. It's actually getting worse, especially from power user point of view. And that is also the other problem, is that the power users are now getting more and more upset with Windows. So the next operating system that are for power users is Linux. So because again, they can control everything that is installed and when it's installed and why it's installed, not because Microsoft said so in most situations.
So according to ChatGPT, I'm getting the percentages of usage. It's going to be around, let's guess. I'm going to say Linux is around 2%.
Yeah, the numbers that I've seen around 5 to 6.
Windows is 70%, raw share of all desktops, 70.07%. Mac OS, 15.39%.
Mm-hmm.
Linux, 4.10%.
Okay.
And then Chrome OS is 10.4. Wow, that's 10.4%. That's actually.
And that is taking now Chrome, and then that's right. That's Chromebooks. That's correct.
Wow.
Now, again, see, this is the interesting thing too, is that of course Chromebook is a variant of a Linux or a Unix-based operating system. So that in
as
itself,
is Mac, according to John.
And that's correct. Yes, as is Mac. So really, if you really go behind the curtain and open up the curtain, there's a lot of Unix, and I'll be specific and say Unix, because there's different flavors. There's Linux is a flavor of Unix, and there's Unix that's been around longer than Linux. But I mean, I'm going to get into that too.
How does 0.65% of a person use Zoom on Linux with you?
Go for it, Frank.
Oh, it says 100% of Mike uses it.
Users
It can connect to all the other Zooms.
Out of 30,000 people.
So less than 1%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which, at a university, you would think there'd be lots of Linux users. But this is for Zoom specifically. They might be using Linux for all kinds of other things, just not for Zoom.
Right. And again, too, this has been something that we've discussed here too, is that, and, it's something that can be done, which is not great, but we are looking into it with myself and my IT team, is that we actually will have the base operating system to be upgraded. So Windows will be removed from the PC and laptops. But if the employee really has a lot of problem adjusting to Linux, which we don't think they will, but should they, then we'll actually have Linux run in the background, and they'll be able to double click on an icon on the desktop, which will open up a virtual machine of Windows.
Yeah.
But that virtual machine of Windows will be locked down to make sure that it will no longer have the negative things as of October, which of course there will be no more security patches for Windows 10 that are done. So it will be a bit of a toss up of what we end up doing at that particular point for employees. But that is sort of where, if it's I must use Windows because of this specific app, because they don't want to build it on Linux, then that would be our Band-Aid. And it's still under discussions right now. We've got a few more months before everything is implemented.
And then there are people who have more than one computer, more than one operating system in their world, or used to use Windows, gave up on it, moved to Mac, but they still have the Windows machine in their house. So they're still counting as owning a Windows machine, even if they're not using. So all the statistics that you're coming up with it's like, throw it in the air, see what happens.
But yeah, again, just to make sure that, to sum up what Dave was talking about, yes. And again, Zoom also supports a lot of different flavors of Linux as well. Like I'm specifically what they using called Mint. Officially, it's called Linux Mint, but Zoom officially classify it. So if you want to download the Mint version of Zoom, then yes, it's there.
Well, and also, David, I think that it's important to realize that many developers don't like to work on Mac or Windows. They like to work on Linux. And there's a lot of companies that use Zoom and other video conferencing in order to work with their people remotely. And so it would be a big problem, I think, if a big, very loud problem for large companies, enterprise companies, if their developers wouldn't come on meetings.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, very, very, very true that, a lot of my developers are, they're the Linux guys. So yes, they're using,
Right.
Now again, am I having them do large meetings? No. Am I having them do Zoom events or Zoom sessions based things? No. But again, if I need them to come on a Zoom meeting, they're perfectly fine. I see them, they see me, I hear them. All the basics of a Zoom meeting is there. There are certain little quirks that they can't do. But again, as Zoom is improving the Linux backend, as you mentioned this week, they did an update, which I don't know if I actually tested or not. But yeah, it's
and those kinds of things, even though the percentages are small, affect the company a lot because of how it would decide whether a particular large enterprise company uses that platform or not.
Yeah,
right?
If there was no Linux capability, then yeah, Zoom would be nope. Because even on WebEx and Teams, I can get it running as well on Linux. Go ahead, Lois.
Okay, I actually have a Zoom question.
But of course.
So I have a situation where in our Quaker meeting, we have a camera pointed at the front. So those of us on Zoom can see the people who are sitting there, but the camera's not wide enough to catch the whole thing. So we've got two cameras now. We've got one that's showing this side and one that's showing this side. And there's a person sitting there controlling things so they can switch, if somebody stands up to talk, we make sure that they're on. Okay, it's cool, it works. Here's my question. How on Zoom, and we're talking plain vanilla Zoom, can I say camera A, camera B, camera A, camera B, and never see camera C, which is over there? I've got a toggle switch to toggle between cameras. And when there was only two, the wide shot and the operator, I could go click, click and be back. Now there's three. I don't want to see the operator as we switch between A and B. Is there a way to do that on Zoom? I can make a keystroke and put it on the keyboard. I've got room for that, but is there a way to do it?
Over to you, David. And you're giving a lot of expressions. Go for it, Dave.
It's a great question. It's a really great question. When you have more than two cameras, there's no way to it will cycle through rather than toggle. I'm gonna look up.
Buy a Stream Deck.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but you know what? So that's the first thing I did is I went to Stream Deck to look, and there is no, at least in the new native Zoom plugin, there is no change video action.
Yeah. If I can't have something that says camera A or camera B, then I don't see how a Stream Deck could help me because I couldn't create the.
Get a camera with a bigger FOV.
Field of view, yeah. So,
hey, John, you got an answer to this one?
I got a question. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me. So if I look at on the bottom left-hand side of my screen, it says video, and there's a caret, and all of a sudden, if I select that, all the cameras that are connected to my computer, I have the ability to switch to them instantaneously.
Absolutely true. And that's the only way we know to do it. And what that does is it puts the thing up on where everybody's looking at, and you suddenly have this stuff coming up there because it's a monitor in it. So I was hoping to avoid having to do that. Yes, John?
I was going to suggest that option to switch the camera, but that would mean that all 3 cameras would need to be connected to one machine.
They are.
So you should be to use the next feature that will just cycle through the cameras that are on that particular Zoom install.
No, but that's the whole point. She doesn't want to just cycle through because one of them is a
It's the
fixed
monitor
camera.
for, yeah. And
Yeah.
whatever we do, it's going to show up on that big monitor that everybody in the room is seeing.
Right.
So
She
if
wants
I
to
go
toggle
cycle, then this big face comes up and then it goes away. Or if I do the, the carrot thing, then on the monitor, this thing comes up and and then it goes away.
Get a used
Okay.
ATEM MIDI off of eBay for $100.
So if I gave you an app that you could press a button in the app window, I could change the camera on that particular machine.
Okay. I think I'm not being clear enough for you. The monitor that everybody sees is mirroring what's on the little screen of the laptop.
Yeah.
Everything that happens on the little screen happens on the big monitor. So if I have to open a second app, and then that's going to show up on the monitor.
Use Zoom tiles
Use what?
for in-room screen. Join with Zoom tiles. You can change the. It's a little bit like a switcher, right, David? You can change the views.
As far as I can tell, on my second screen, I cannot put a gallery view. The only way I can get that thing up there is to mirror my computer to that monitor, having nothing to do with Zoom. If I'm in Zoom, I can get one image up there, but I can't get the gallery view. I can't switch things.
Lois, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because now I'm a little confused. So you have 3 cameras attached to one Zoom device, right?
There's a camera in the laptop. That's
right.
the third
And that's
camera.
like the speaker camera.
Yeah.
Let's call it the speaker. Okay. And so what is while I understand why you may not want to have the speaker up on the big screen, why does that end up being a problem?
Because then the people sitting in the room can't see the people who are worshiping with them.
Okay. I just
Well,
had a
wouldn't
thought.
the solution be
Well,
wouldn't the solution then be using like Ecamm or OBS or Mimeo Live or any of those? I mean, you need a switcher if you want to do that. It seems to me if you're going to use more than one camera, you need a switcher to get the kind of effect that you want to get.
Well, that or see, Frank, I don't think tiles would work because tiles will only bring in instances of Zoom. What you could do is run 2 different Zoom, you grab, 2 different computers or whatever, set them up, have one pointed at one part of the audience, one pointed at the other part of the audience, and then use tiles to
Like a switcher.
merge those together up on the screen. But you can't do that with just one computer and 3 cameras.
You could get a webcam. I'm trying to think of the name of them that pans and tilts. You could get
HubSpot or the Elgato.
and that way you could pan the camera left or right, depending, or zoom in and out. Or you could get for $100 probably the original ATEM Mini, and then you have a switcher that can switch from camera to camera. But now it's got to be HDMI. So do your webcams have HDMI?
So the reason that I'm looking for a solution that can be a button on the keyboard or on something else is that whatever shows on the screen is going to show in the room. So if I have a second app open, that's going to show up there. So that's why I'm trying to avoid that.
But there's another piece of this, Lois, and that is that what you're describing means that the people who are at home watching on Zoom are never seeing the speaker.
What do you mean they're never seeing the speaker?
Because if you have 3 cameras all connected to the same computer, the same
Yeah.
one Zoom instance, and you want to toggle just between the two audience views, that same view is what's going out to your Zoom audience.
Right. Well, they get to choose if they have it big or if they're gallery, because it's
But no, that you said that these are 3 cameras attached to one computer.
right.
Then
So the
there's
people,
only then all they can see is what you're sending, and what you're describing is that you're sending
the
you
audience.
want to send just one view of the audience, not the speaker. So
What did you say about the speaker? What speaker?
you said that you have 3 cameras. One is
Yes.
facing the
The
lead
operator of the machinery. Okay.
so there is no speaker or leader.
No, it's Quakers. There's no minister.
Okay, I apologize. I
No,
understand.
that's not an
Okay.
apology. I said probably the wrong word. I don't care if we see the operator ever. I don't want to see the operator.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand
Okay.
what you're saying. So what you really want to do actually is remove, you want to not use the webcam. And there is a setting for that, isn't there?
I didn't think you could remove the internal camera as an option.
There is.
There is. Okay, tell me.
I don't know where it is, but I know that there is because I've seen that before.
Yeah, you can disable it as a device. You can disable it as a device, and it will then disappear off the list.
Right, but
Yeah, and
where
also
do you do that?
And also software-wise, you can, if you have a piece of software like a little app, you can actually get it specifically call up a particular camera. But really, what you want is
does that show up on your screen, or is that something separate?
Well, I get the feeling that you want, so the 3 options you want is gallery view, audience on the left, and audience on the right. Those are the 3 options you want, isn't it? You don't want the internal camera working. So we disable the internal camera, and you've just got the audience on the left, audience on the right, and then gallery view, because gallery view is what you want normally so people can see the gallery.
Right.
Sorry, can I?
The monitor sees the gallery, but the people on Zoom are seeing one or the other of the cameras. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if you're mirroring what the host is seeing, then you can't have one in gallery view. And then
So why are we insistent on continuing to monitor? We can just move away from monitor. They duplicating the monitor.
Oh, the monitor is large and
No. So
in the middle
allow
of
me
the
to finish,
circle.
Louise. Allow me
I'm
to
sorry.
What I'm suggesting, right, to ease your pain is something that basically to go where Jan was going, which is to probably use OBS, bring in all the cameras in OBS. From OBS, take the virtual camera and send the virtual camera to Zoom. So, so basically, it's not as difficult as it sounds. So once you finish, once you switch in OBS, the different views in OBS, whichever camera, the 3 cameras, that virtual output, the OBS becomes your switcher. And OBS will then put whatever you want to go to Zoom, the operator will be. And then now, what you could do with OBS is that OBS has this projection view where you can take the output from OBS and project it onto another screen. So you can basically extend the screen if you want, if you don't want to duplicate what's on the screen. So by extending the screen, you'll never see what's on the main window. And once you do that, you'll be good to go. It's not as difficult as it sounds, but just to
So if I understand you, Roland, you say buy another program, OBS.
No, buy, it's free.
Well, get another program, however, get it.
Right.
And then have the 3 inputs from the cameras, camera A, B, and C,
right,
going into OBS.
Correct.
However, I would get them into OBS. I'm not sure.
You add them as sources. David,
let me see if I understand you, please.
Good.
So then once I get all this stuff into OBS,
correct,
that program does its thing.
Right.
And then it produces something which is a video image. And then that gets added to a Zoom call. Did I
Right.
get that right?
So basically, OBS can take, you have 3 different inputs, and OBS becomes your switcher. So when you decide that I want this camera, OBS will send out that video feed to Zoom. And when you select another camera, OBS selects that view out to Zoom. And if you want, and then the great thing now with OBS now, like David's tiles, map, high flying tiles, you could actually create in OBS what they refer to as a scene and put the 2 cameras side by side if you want, and send that out as a separate group. But that, you don't have to go down that route. That's just complicating a little bit. But
Okay.
OBS has what they call a virtual camera. So if I don't know if you saw earlier where what's his last name? Robert
Sababedi.
Right. He was giving us the meters, and the meters went blank on it for a minute, and then you saw the OBS screen. That's what he's doing here is sending in this camera feed via OBS as a camera.
So
and
that
he's able to switch. So that's the virtual camera that is being sent to Zoom. That's what he's doing right here. So what he has, he just showed it a while ago. If you look, if you're looking in the view, he was in the gallery. Robert, do it again. Right. So that's the virtual camera that he's feeding into OBS.
So that would mean that I would need to get and install this program. I would need to learn how to do it. And then I would have to teach every single person who turns on the system to have our meeting.
And it's not the
I
beauty
think
about
that's going to
OBS.
be, pardon?
Is that the beauty about OBS is that it's not that difficult. Once you have set it up the first time, that's it. Because you basically say to them, this is camera 1, this is camera 2, this is camera 3. When you want that camera, you click on it and basically you're good to go. OBS makes it very, I mean, if in another meeting, we can, okay, right, here's somebody actually doing it here.
Yes, so, I understand about this. And right. Thank you for the suggestion. Given the people who are
so look on this, Louis.
There, I doubt that we will be able to do this.
Well, somebody's got to run the computer, right? The main computer,
and whoever runs that computer, and sign into Zoom, and then switch back and forth from cameras.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're respectfully. I think that Lois is looking for a low-tech solution for a low-tech problem. She just wants to be able to toggle between 2 cameras, and I mean, yes, you could do it with
3 cameras.
With Ecamm, you could
three.
Well, no, we want to avoid one. No. We want to not use one.
No, she said 3.
Thank you all. I think I have figured out the solution, and that is to take something and put it over the camera that has a face in it, and go cycle through. One will be blank for a second, and that will work.
No. I honestly feel that if you give it a try with users one, just go back where it is, John. Just show it back again.
It's okay, Roland. I can use OBS. I can do that. It's not a problem. The problem is that when we're in the meeting, in the silence of the meeting, and the operator is trying to switch cameras, that's all. The operators are not going to be doing OBS in the middle of a meeting. It's just not going to happen.
Okay.
It would be disruptive to the service.
No.
Okay. She said disruptive to the service. It's her service. He knows what we disrupt.
I can't hear you. Your sound is breaking.
You're breaking up, John.
I said you can't argue with her. She knows when the service.
No. I accept it.
Yeah.
Lois, this is really a good example of why Stream Decks are actually so sexy, because you give somebody a little box with some buttons on it, and all they do is press the button. It all works for them.
Mm-hmm. And that would be lovely.
Yeah. John, they still have to set it up.
Someone has to set it up, true. And if it got to only being set up once, and then from then on you pushed a button, that would be possible. So anyway, I'm sorry I delayed everybody from talking about the new stuff, and thank you for your help.
Thank you, Lois, because that was a good question. I'm sure a dozen people online would have the same sort of issues.
Yeah, I have a question regarding this meeting in particular and getting it started.
Jen, we're having a tough time. I don't know if the mic, there's
Hold
some
on, let
sort
me
of
check.
disturb. Oh,
Yeah,
Let me
hold
see
on
what's
to
going on.
check. That's better.
Okay. Don't know what I've
Yeah.
done. It
Yeah,
seems
you're
like
better
it's
now.
okay. Question. I want to come into the meeting using Ecamm. So I clicked the link, but no matter what I did, it only wanted to open up in Zoom. How would I join a meeting? How would I join this meeting other without having the code and the password? Is there a link that would open the Ecamm settings, or do you have to just come in with entering the meeting ID and the password if you're using Ecamm Live?
That, well, it's very specific to the Ecamm world. And unfortunately, I wish you asked that 2 seconds ago before David disappeared, and he might have been able to give an answer for you. But let me try it this way. Right now, and again, I'm going to use the Windows world and the Linux world. When you click on certain things, the operating system or the app knows to open up certain software because the software has told the operating system, oh, if somebody clicks on this, do this, right? So it could be because you also have regular Zoom Workplace on that machine as well as Ecamm, correct, John?
Yep.
So now, right now, the operating system, as far as it's been told, and probably because Zoom was installed first before you installed Ecamm, it took over any link that you've been given in Zoom via email, via whatever you click on before you enter that meeting. It's been told by the operating system, the software, so the Zoom software has told the operating system that you're running, if it's PC, Mac, whatever, that, oh, yes, they're talking to me, and that's, I understand this link. I'm going to open up now. And that's what you now have to go into your operating system and actually disable that. And then in the Windows world, you could easily then say, okay, Ecamm, anytime I click on a link, then Ecamm will open automatically. But again, this will be a problem if you don't want to use Ecamm. And
Right.
if you do want to, and you want to click on the link, and because the two are going to be conflicting with each other, and they're both Zoom related links, you're always going to, they're going to be fighting each other. So it would
It's
have to
best
be your
just to use
call
the
on that.
password and the meeting code. It's best just to use the password and the meeting code.
When you need to go into something specific to Ecamm, yes. Now, if you want to
Have you
use Ecamm
tried?
all the time, then I would switch it at the operating system level. Go ahead, John.
Have you tried pasting the link into Ecamm?
Yeah, wouldn't work. Wouldn't
Okay.
work. I'm going to show you. I'm using the email. Let me see if I can find it. I'm using the email. Here it is. I will. It says this week in the Zoom test kitchen, and then you have at the bottom. It has two choices: join in Zoom, watch on YouTube.
Right. And then when you're clicking on the join on Zoom, your email client doesn't know what to do with it, but it does know that that link is tied to something on your system. And if it wasn't, it wouldn't do anything.
No,
No,
the link is a URL, so the link goes to the
that's right.
browser.
It
Then the
goes to the browser.
browser, the
Oh, then
browser
it goes to the
then
browser. Okay.
the browser then launches Zoom because that's the default action.
Okay. So then the browser knows that it's supposed to open the Zoom client. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why Ecamm doesn't pick it up.
Right. So
But
now
I think you can change the rules with your browser if you want to, and get it to be picked up by Ecamm instead.
Yeah, there are times when I don't want to use Ecamm.
Yeah.
But
So
if
if
you do that, then you'll lose Zoom because then Ecamm will come your default
Right.
default app.
yeah.
That's what I
So again, what I was talking about, of course, is if it had its own. Sorry, I went too far where there are certain ones. So like if you have a link that says tel:// it would not open a web browser. It would actually open an app on your machine that would actually dial out that telephone number, right? So that's, sorry. So if it's an HTTP, thanks, John, for that.
Yeah, and Florence, though, confirms my suspicion. which is you can put the Zoom link in the Ecamm for Zoom app under the join by ID or link option, and it will work. So she's used that link, like I said, and it's worked. So give it another go.
I put the instructions in the chat with the link on how to do it.
I tried that and it wouldn't open up. Maybe it's because I right-clicked on where it says open and join in Zoom, and then I copied the link address, and the link address had a bunch of. It went to the Torah Tech guy first, and then it goes, and then it's .com, and then he takes you into Zoom.
Yeah, that's probably why. But here, I'll just put the Zoom link in the meeting chat, and you can copy it. It's a direct link to this meeting.
Good. That's why it didn't work.
Yeah. Again, I don't use the actual join from that link, and that is David just doing a redirect from his main domain to the Zoom link.
Yeah. David left?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
You
see
have
it?
other Ecamm.
Do you see the meeting link in the
Yeah.
chat?
Yes, I do.
So the instructions on how to use that in Ecamm are above that.
Oh, well, all you got to do is copy and paste it in.
Yeah. So if it's that link that has the TorahTechGuide.zoom.us, that should work in Ecamm without
The thing
any.
is, he's
All right.
copying the link to the website, and then the website's redirecting, but he's not getting the actual link to the meeting. He's getting the link to the website.
Right.
Is there somebody? Okay, Mike, you're a host. I'm going to drop out and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to come in with Ecamm.
Of course. Yeah, I'll let you in so you can test. Absolutely. Yes, and that's open to any of our YouTube viewers that are watching as well. If you do want to test your Ecamm or vMix or Mimo Live, Robert's been doing that most of the show, actually playing with Maters right now, actually, as we speak. Hello, Robert. And he was helping during Lois's situation of turning certain things on and off and playing with OBS. And I'm going to let Jan in now and see if this actually works for Jan coming in via Ecamm. So here we go.
The Ecamm Test Kitchen.
The Ecamm Test Kitchen. We'd be testing all kinds of things. And it's better to test here than it is especially if you're getting paid to do stuff. All right. So Jan's in. Now we're just waiting for him to see if he'll actually be able to. Yeah. So again, Florence is actually making the comment too. You cannot use a redirect URL. You must use the actual Zoom link in Ecamm. Yeah. So that's correct. Yeah. So that's
Same for Zoom OST and ISO.
yes.
Yeah.
Same with
because actually they're all using the same code. This is Zoom's code at the beginning. So it's the login process of Zoom is if you've got a Zoom box, you can cut and paste the Zoom link and it will translate it for you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So as we wait for, there we go. We got a green screen Jan. Let's see what Jan's doing here. All right. We're going to make it spotlighting Jan. Oh, nope. He disappeared on me. Yes, he did. There he is. There we go. So Jan, are you hearing us too? Let's see if everything's working. We definitely see a green screen in the background.
He's busy configuring stuff.
All right. Well, cool. We'll let him play. All right. Anything else going on? John, you've had a busy week, you told me.
I have, yeah. Trying to make sense, watching all those YouTube videos.
Right, the RTMS.
Yeah, and then trying to make sense of it all so I can ask intelligent questions to my Zoom developer buddies.
Yeah,
I've got to be careful got to be careful to ask intelligent questions. Don't want to insult them with stupid questions, so I have to get some intelligent questions. But work in progress is probably the polite way of saying it. I have a feeling that they may be somebody put a marker down and said we're going to run an event on this date, And hopefully by then everybody will, use it and up to date. Jan, you've got a delay coming through. And maybe some of the stuff wasn't as ready as maybe some of them would have liked it to have been, but it was still well received, I think, by those that understood it and those that will go away and understand it. And there's no when you're releasing new technology, there's no perfect solution of in what order you do anything anyhow. So they've had the videos, the code is available on Mac. It's not available yet on Windows, but there's enough of it available that you can start playing with it and working on it. So it's all now up to people's imagination to find uses for it, really. And then when we get the oh gosh, my invisible non-existent NDA comes into force here. Let's just say that there is an ongoing discussion about transcripts and chat. And I don't know how long this ongoing discussion is going to be. I've got no idea, but I hope that eventually this ongoing discussion will mean that there will be another thing from Zoom which gives us the ability to get transcripts and chat without having to have the whole media server thing running, especially
That's good to hear.
If they come with a cost. Because I did put I think I put quite a good business case to the guys of areas where I could make use of the chat and I can make use of the transcript, and I wouldn't need the overheads at Zoom for a big media server just to process transcripts and chat. So I think on the roadmap somewhere somebody's going to pencil in to do that. And also, quite frankly, not using your name in vain here, Frank, but quite frankly, about what other people do without Zoom's help. In other words, these people that use the Chrome plugin to go in and screen grab the chat. There are so many amazing imaginative ways that they're using that now that it'll be nice. That's the polite word. It almost necessity that Zoom need to get a better way that those developers can get chat into Zoom meetings that can then be processed in some way by code to make the chat more accessible, more useful. And I'm sure in Frank's education world, this would be really useful, because if you could start doing quizzes in the chat, there is quite a lot of reasons why it would be nice to be able to do that in the chat. As much as polls, etc., are really exciting, there are lots of reasons why you would rather have that interactive conversation through the chat.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And if they don't do it, well, I'm already starting to develop those apps, but I'm using RTMS at the moment. And if that's good enough to prove to Zoom that there's mileage in that area and they can save costs by having a better route than using RTMS all the time, because I'm not processing any media, so why have the overhead? So that's my official, unofficial budget, and we'll do it game plan. And of course, I'll just encourage all the developers to follow me, and we'll get something out of Zoom. I've only ever known one other company that's this flexible in bringing out APIs to allow developers to make things happen. And I had to be an employee of that company and head of development to get that to happen. So it's amazing what Zoom do. I can't stop thanking them. And every time I get frustrated by them bringing out an API and it doesn't work the way we imagined it, that's quite often because we come up with a business case for how an API should work. Then some poor little engineer has to implement it with their interpretation of how they think the API should work. And then it comes back to the real world. And the real world says, this is not exactly what we wanted. And then you iterate until you get it to work properly. But yeah. I think the interaction of chat, transcripts, and AI at the moment is being done by Zoom in Zoom with Companion and all the other tools inside Zoom. There are quite a few third parties who are now trying to grabbed that data from the RTMS. They've grabbed it from other ways before, like Zoom ISO, but they've been grabbing the data and they've been putting it through processes in AI. If we move further along the line with RTMS, and then we move further along again with getting chat and transcripts in an easier way to download, I think the number of apps and uses and possibilities is just going to snowball. So I've got a headache, but I'm very excited.
Yeah, but again, it's got a lot of extra capabilities that we didn't have a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what I mean by we, developer world or even the world outside of corporate employee Zooms people.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably even more importantly, though it's not so obvious if you're not in the ecosystem, it's also a lot easier because you could, and Jan's playing around with Ecamm. I mentioned vMix. Most of those programs are running on how can I put this politely? The video SDK, which is sort of Zoom ISO, and that's quite a nightmare to program because it's a video SDK, so it's running in C and it's a video processing software development kit. So you've got to understand video processing. Now, if you're vMix or Ecamm, you could do that, but a normal average developer is not going to have, or probably is not going to have that level of understanding if they're just doing standard apps. So if Zoom can make their end easier to give the data and process it, then there's much more scope for more developers to do video processing type apps. And if I want to do a camera app in my Zoom marketplace apps, I just tell Zoom where I want the box and what size I want it. So I don't have to understand anything about video. I just say, please put my Zoom feed across that bit of the screen. Thank you very much. And it does it. I don't have to understand video. I can just plonk it on my screen. If I want to put a caption in, I can just say, plonk this text here, and it does it. That's much easier than going to the video SDK and having to program it all and know where the video stream is and is it buffering and all those issues and just plonk it on the screen. Oh,
Absolutely.
I was gonna introduce Jan, but he did one of those frowning looks, and we've done another one.
Oh,
That's another feature we're adding to Zoom. We're gonna add an AI frown detector, and if you deliver more than 5 frowns at once, we'll send you some welcoming, encouraging message in chat.
When you say frowns of my face was frowning, is that what you were saying?
You were twitching the side of your mouth, as you can see. Your
Yeah,
brain
I am trying to figure out the Ecamm thing. I'm seeing one thing on my screen and seeing something else in the Ecamm, and I can't figure out exactly what it is.
Well, I can tell you that your audio is better. Your video looks clearer than it did last time in using the client. So I don't know.
You had a big hesitation at the beginning, so it took a while for Ecamm to get going.
Yes.
And it's lagging slightly. So with respect, you might have a PC slightly underpowered for what you're trying to do.
I've got an M4 Mac. I would say that should be more than
that's way underpowered then, because it's probably only using one of the processors, and it's leaving all the rest. It's leaving all the rest twiddling their thumbs.
Now, Jan, would you want to make sure too that if you are running Ecamm, do not run the Zoom client in the background?
Right, I shut that down.
Okay, because they will definitely be fighting each other tooth and nail. It's like, no, I want it. No, I want it. No, I want it. Boxing match or free.
Well, also what I've noticed in regards to the settings, and that is if you go into audio settings using the Ecamm Zoom client, you have only a few choices. And there is no, if I look at this, there is no choice unless you go to advanced of auto cancellation. However, if you go up to the Ecamm Live preference settings and go to audio, you have two choices right from the start. One, use echo cancellation, and then enable echo cancellation for internal speakers. So it seems that might be competing with each other as well.
I don't know enough about Ecamm, but I will give you what vMix does, and it sounds like it's similar. You've got to take into consideration that uh, Ecamm is going to control Zoom. So the Zoom client that comes with Ecamm wants to be the god piece of software, right? So it is going to control the audio and video, everything that's being sent to Zoom. Ecamm is going to want 100% control of. So it's going to want you to be less in the Zoom client settings, then it would rather you do a lot more tweaking in Ecamm when it comes to settings than tweaking the Zoom client, unless you really have to, in Ecamm. That is my thought. I know in the vMix world, that is what we've been told, is that there's certain settings that you'll never find in the vMix Zoom client, because you should be configuring that in vMix, not configuring it in the Zoom client of vMix. Does that make sense?
Yeah, does.
So that might be why you're seeing certain things here, but not there. And again, the Zoom client that was made by Ecamm is never going to be 100% settings wise that you're expecting in the Zoom Workplace app, because they've filtered out, just like John was talking about earlier. I don't know if you caught this, John, Jan, when we were talking about we were talking about, oh yes, the people that wanted version 5 look of the Workplace app, where you would add all of the latest version 6 features, and then John would actually start taking out all the things that people didn't want from version 6 to make it look like version 5. So in the Ecamm world, or the vMix world, or the Mimo Live client world, they've only included what they want or need Zoom to be able to do in their client. It will never be a full-blown, team chat necessarily, tasks necessarily, whiteboard necessarily. That won't be in their client ever. And it will always be an older client whenever Ecamm gives you that latest version of the client, because they've decided to update it. Always. That's why when I think you were mentioning this last week or the week before, that you're running into certain features not being in this and that, and features being over there. That's exactly it, is that the ultimate feature rich client will always be Zoom Workplace app. The Ecamms, the vMixes, the Mimo Lives will always be behind, because they're not getting the information until that latest SDK is got all of the features that they are releasing in the Workplace app. And John, you can give me a little more back history on that too, correct? Because the SDK is behind.
The video SDK is effectively Zoom in a browser.
Right.
So the interesting question here is, will there be a move by some of these companies to put some of their functionality into Zoom Workplace app, use RTMS? Because that's another way now of getting video out. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Right. Absolutely. So as you see, and again, John, correct me if I'm wrong, the web browser version is behind Workplace app as well. So there's still certain features not in the web browser version.
The web browser is pretty much up to date with everything. I think the chat, I think people said wasn't updated yet. Well, the chat should be updated, because the chat isn't delivered by you, it's delivered by the browser. Thank you. The chat browser. So the chat will be up to date. Was our drinks as well, Jan?
Cheers.
Send your little person around for us as well.
Okay, I'll do that. That's a good idea.
We once had a new committee for Toastmasters UK, and they decided to do a group activity, but we were in COVID, so they got this delivery guy to deliver pizzas, unfinished pizzas, to every single person in the group around the country, and then they all made pizzas together. But it does take a bit of scheduling and organizing. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It is the the browser they can get is up to date, but obviously the video SDK also needs to be updated, and that can get a delay as well. So they might get a delay on the video functions, but they probably get a lot of the functionality appearing straight away because it's built into the browser. Depending how they launch. I don't know how they launch theirs.
Well, it is confusing. When you go into the, one thing I'll say, you use the Zoom client alone, standalone, not confusing, very easy. The eCam is a little bit, well, not a little bit, it's super more confusing to me. Very confusing to me.
I would dare to say that if any of these organizations wanted to connect to Zoom today, there's a good chance they would not go the same way that they went in the past, because there's so many other ways of connecting to Zoom and using Zoom.
Yeah. So Jen, I would expect going forward, it might get easier because Zoom is making it easier for them to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's up to eCam because, for example, in the eCam settings, you could set the delay for the video for the microphone because the video is faster. So you got to set the delay time. But the only way that you could do it is by recording when you're offline and clapping. And that is very difficult to figure out.
True, but not abnormal to video software switching software. So I have to do that for VMix. I have to do that for OBS too. Go ahead, John.
But I could write it in an app. It would be easy to a piece of software to get your hand, a bit of AI to capture the frame where your hands clap together and then look at the audio and then do the sync. So I'm disappointed, Jan. I think that is an easy piece of software to write. Perhaps no one can be bothered.
All righty, Frank. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm on mobile. In my experience, the video lags audio. The audio processing is much easier on the CPU than the video processing.
Yeah, 100%. Frank is right. It's always audio is less to process than video will always be. So yeah, you'll be definitely always backing off. You'll be backing. Sorry, let me do this right now. The audio will be sooner than video. So yes,
yeah, you're going to want to put a delay on the audio.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I did that right.
However many milliseconds.
Yeah, and again, this is what I've had to do even for, and again, Jan too, this is not actually abnormal for hardware switchers either, because right now I'm running the A10 Mini into Zoom, into my PC, and I've had to do it there too. And that's because I happen to be using, because again, sorry, it's because in the A10 Mini Pro that I'm using, because it's an HDMI version, and I'm using SDI cameras, my SDI to HDMI converter and such is adding that a little bit extra delay because I have to convert it from SDI to HDMI to bring it in the ATEM. So again, I have to adjust everything accordingly.
Yeah.
So it's not an abnormal thing in the video switching world to sync up audio with video. As long as you do it right, it'll look really good. And once you do it once, especially if you're running the same similar setup all the time, then it should be good. Software, on the other hand, if you've tweaked it and it worked fine, then all of a sudden it seems to not work anymore, where it starts to drift, then I would start getting concerned that there actually might be more software, something else is using up that CPU then at that particular point. And this is where I sort of get into the conversation of, do I make sure that this video switching software machine now is not a workstation anymore. And what I mean by that, it's not your daily driver of, do I use it for my email? Do I use it for word processing? And oh, by the way, yeah, I'm just going to throw Ecamm on it and I'm going to use Ecamm on it now. So this is where a lot in the video production world will say, okay, no, I'm buying that Mac, and that Mac is always going to be Ecamm, and that's it. Why? Because I know that I'm only going to make sure Ecamm is working on it, because now I have to worry about the nuances that you're talking about, which is making sure the audio and video are in sync. Because as soon as I start to implement additional features, email, word browsing, even browsing, running a browser could even affect it too, because it might be that you're looking at a website that actually is using a lot of the GPU. Let's say that you're watching, let's say, a YouTube video and it's going to use more of the GPU. Well, so is Ecamm, and now they're both fighting, right? And again, this is not abnormal too. This has been in the vMix world for many, many years, where all of a sudden they've told us in the community, they said, no, the machine, if it's running vMix, let it run vMix. Don't be monitoring, don't be using it for 5 other things at the same time as vMix is happening, because chances are you're going to take away from the GPU, the NVIDIA GPU, in this case for vMix, that it utilizes quite a lot, would then get oversaturated because it doesn't know, the GPUs and doesn't know, and the operating system doesn't know that you really want to prioritize vMix over anything else. It's just going to go, no, I need this right now, and I'm going to grab onto it, and it doesn't care if it affects vMix or not. And that's been in the community for many years too. But yeah, that is definitely a few pro tips. Been there, done that. Ran into that, and made sure that I thinned out if I was using video switching software, that is what I did do to my production machines at live events. Oh, and Jan's playing with lower thirds, and all's good, going good there. All right.
Yeah.
Frank?
The interesting thing is I am seeing 2 different backgrounds. I'm seeing 2 different virtual backgrounds. On the Ecamm software, I'm seeing a brick wall. On when I'm streaming to you, I'm seeing the black background with the word Soundbroker on it. And there's 2 different settings. So in the Ecamm, I have it on green screen with a different background, and on the video of the Zoom settings, I have it. I'll just take it off, and I'm using the right camera. I could see that I'm using the right camera. Virtual backgrounds. If I take it off, none. Oh, there you go. That's it. So it was superseding the Ecamm, the Zoom settings for the virtual background were superseding
they're complete
the
because they're
Ecamm live
separate.
settings.
They are separate. So Ecamm was putting a virtual background on, but if you had Zoom saying a virtual background, Zoom will look at what you are, take your image, and then it will put a virtual background behind it. So you've just turned off the
reality,
Zoom.
Ecamm is 2 apps in one. It's a Zoom app, a Zoom client, and an Ecamm.
Correct.
And you got to be careful
and they're
too.
Not not very well integrated, because
I would agree with
when
that.
they first started the journey, that's what they could do, and it wasn't easy to integrate. As I said, it's just like I said earlier. If they did it today, they could probably make the integration tighter and more uniform. But yeah, so Zoom was doing a virtual background because you left that function running on it, and Ecamm's got its own version of virtual background. And of course, if I gave you access to one of my Zoom apps, I could have you creating or you could use one of the other ones available. Other ones are available apart from mine. Don't want to take over the whole world. Then I could give you lower thirds that would work within Zoom, and they would go over the top of your Ecamm ones as well.
Well, with all due respect, I believe if I can't find when you're using the Ecamm, it doesn't give you the ability to look at apps. I don't find it.
Correct,
because they're not adding apps.
Correct, because the Windows version, the browser version of the video SDK doesn't have the apps.
Yeah, and then there was an app that I believe that it was your app that I was using. Oops, sorry about that. See that? Hey, what's going on? I like that. You know, But what I basically, I tried using those other apps, and in the beginning, and they weren't working well for me. A little bit confusing, but I think the one I was using happened to be yours with the lower thirds.
That's very kind of you to say, but it won't be because my lower thirds one is not on general release, but it'll be one of the other people that come here. So probably SPX or
Right. Now, Jen, again, you gotta remember the conversation I just had with you is that Zoom is Zoom, Ecamm is Ecamm, right? Ecamm has added Zoom capabilities. It's not Ecamm is not Zoom, and Zoom is not Ecamm, right? So you've got to think, right? So you've got to take into consideration that anything that you can do in Zoom Workplace, do not assume that you can do that in Ecamm at all. You can only do what Ecamm lets you do of Zoom because they said so, and they chose to be. So if John does make marketplace apps, unless Ecamm, for whatever reason, integrates marketplace apps into their Zoom client that they customized and made, it'll never be Ecamm capable. Nor would you necessarily want a marketplace app at all to do that. Now, if you've got Ecamm, by all means, use their lower thirds. Don't use SPX because that's for people that don't have an Ecamm, right? So it makes no sense for you to be using Ecamm's lower third and SPX's lower third because SPX's lower third is built into Zoom, which is great if you don't need Ecamm. But if you do need Ecamm, then use Ecamm by all means because Ecamm will have a lot better
I believe
capabilities.
in the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. And it seems to me that it's much simpler to do it through Zoom than it is through an outside app, no matter what that app is.
Exactly. But at the time that Ecamm and all these other companies created their apps, Marketplace didn't exist. And the only way to do it was through the video SDK, which is the programming language to allow you to use videos, because obviously they're dealing with videos. And the video SDK can only work in the browser version, inside the browser version of Zoom. So you start with a browser, you add the Zoom bits, you add the Ecamm bits, and that becomes your Ecamm product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jen, you are right though that if you can get all the functionality in Zoom Workplace through marketplace apps and that's good enough for you, then that's good enough. Now, where Ecamm really shines, of course, is you're bringing videos in and you want to do a nice crossfade between that video and yourself and back to yourself again. That Zoom's not ready for that yet. So don't think of Zoom is not, and even in Production Studio, they're getting there soon. But when soon is still, and again, you'll still will have to run Production Studio at that particular point too, within Zoom, and also have Zoom sessions or Zoom events licensed so that you can use Production Studio. So where Ecamm really shines is for the production quality of bringing in multiple cameras, bringing in multiple feeds, bringing in all the Ecamm, what Ecamm does really, really well. But if you only need the basics of you've got one camera, you want to put up a lower third every once in a while, or you want to have the lower third up all the time, then that's called Zoom with SFX, the marketplace app, or a lower third app, or even as John has showed us too, you could actually add it as a virtual layer on top of your video, and then you have that lower third there too. So there are a number of different ways of you can actually do that. But if you want to go down the road of, again, you're doing with what you're sending us right now, you could easily do in Zoom. But if you want right? So it brings the flexibility. Ecamm itself brings the flexibility of having multiple inputs, being able to bring in all kinds of different audio and video, whatever, from wherever into an output as something that will go out of Ecamm into Zoom.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me that Zoom is designed for the one person. You're one person, you have maybe a group of people, and the ability to do everything is right there on the bottom panel for you. You could do it all easily enough. Whereas Ecamm, it's a little more difficult for one person. It's almost better if you had an assistant being your video switcher or doing the effects, whatever, because once you're concentrating on the conversation, you don't want to be thinking about, oh my God, I got to get into 2-shot, or I got to go to the 3-shot, or I've whatever it is. Even with the Stream Deck, you still have to take focus off and think about what you want to do. Whereas it seems the Zoom app is so much more intuitive to change things around when you're in Zoom.
Right. Now again, you got what the way that I easily from my production brain, because again, I've been in the streaming industry for over 30 years. So what I use Zoom for, if I've got a full production and I need to bring it into Zoom, what I basically will do is I treat Zoom as if it's an encoder. And if you understand what I mean by encoder, think of it that way, right? So again, think of Zoom then that your PC that you're bringing into is an encoder, right? So what am I giving that encoder is the full production feed. Right. So again, you're right. So if I'm hosting a Zoom meeting, would I rather that production be done by a co-host? 100%. Or a TD? 100%. Because do I want to be TD and host at the same time? I manage it here for the Zoom Test Kitchen, but there are times where David flops and there are times where I flop too. It's like, oh, I hit the wrong button and all of a sudden, things don't work as they should, right?
We are on the same page. Exactly. We're on the same page. I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think anybody who's done it with more than one person, all of a sudden you realize that if you're the host, you are the host. If you're the TD, you got to be the TD. But to do both, it really doubles your ability to think. I mean, you really have to be on your toes to do it right.
Yeah, and that's why again I rely on John, yourself, and the other panelists that are here with me, especially when David leaves, because I am pretty much TD when David is hosting. I'm dealing with the back end of Zoom bombers. This week, unfortunately, we had a YouTube bomber that decided to visit me twice now, and I put him in the penalty box once, and I guess he was really consistent, and I just put him in the penalty box again. Now he's banned for 24 hours. So he's in the penalty box for a while, so he won't be bothering us until we're off air. So, but that being said, again, this goes back to even what Tony was mentioning earlier, and when we're talking a little bit about the Zoom bombers as well, is it's never bad to have, Frank, yeah, just give me a sec. Let me mute Frank here. Yeah, you got it, Frank. Oh, you got it. Thanks, John. So when it comes to the Zoom bombers, as a specific example, at least the TD can also be the Zoom bomber police as well. You can give that person that capability as well, because it allows them to, again, it keeps the host thinking on what the host is doing. I've let David know a couple of times today, but again, I'm doing it in text on chat, so he can still keep going. So at least I'm keeping him informed that yes, we did have a bomber or two coming. And that's why we accidentally thought you were the bomber, Jan. And I'm like, no, I just haven't gotten to Jan yet because I was dealing with the bomber on YouTube. So that's why you were in the room longer. And I didn't realize, because again, I've got multiple screens going with multiple things too. And now I've got multiple screens and I'm also hosting too. So
funny you should say that, because I texted Fred. I said, hey, is the Zoom kitchen over already? Because I didn't get here till a little late. So I wasn't sure, because I remembered asking last week, are you going to be open on the 4th of July? And he says, yeah, I'll be here. And so when I went in and I was sitting in the waiting room so long, I texted Fred to say, hey, is the Zoom kitchen on today? Because I'm just in the waiting room and I wasn't sure. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. And Fred's watching us on YouTube, was he?
I don't know if he was or not. I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, because Fred did not get back to you? Oh, okay. But
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
No, he didn't.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so it would make sense if Fred's not joining us because he's enjoying the 4th of July. As we in Canada enjoyed our Canada Day a few days ago. So
Well, I have to say this is a very fun group, and I like it. And I'm really, most of the time I'm in Thailand. So right now it's in the middle of the morning right now. I mean, it's like 2, 3 in the morning, maybe even a little bit later. So I can't get up like that. I'm gonna miss you guys, but I'll be watching you on YouTube
Absolutely. And of course,
while
yeah.
we're here in the States. I love it.
Yeah, and again, of course, Robert was just went to bed, and of course, it's midnight in Poland. So yeah, so he just he just went to bed now too. But Robert again took advantage of spending the time during our broadcast to actually test out. He was using in conjunction. It looked like he was playing with some sort of meters. That's right. He brought up he was having meter issues last week with the Waves plugin and the
Yeah.
Mac version of the OS, if I remember correctly. John, am I wrong with that? I think it was something like that.
That sounded pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, Robert took the advantage of, again, this is why we're also here for our Zoom Test Kitchen community, is for you to, as long as we know who you are and as long as you're part of the Discord channel, and I hope, Jen, you are in there too. If not, join. And that
I'm not sure if I am in the Discord. If somebody wants to throw the link in the chat for me, I will
Sure.
join it now. I don't believe I'm in the Discord.
Okay, you're on Discord though?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, if you go to the zoomtestkitchen.com, and I'll do our quick little plug here. So if you go to the zoomtestkitchen.com website, you'll see our Discord button there, and you'll be able to join our Discord server /channel / whatever they want to classify that to be. On that note, I'll do
zoomtestkitchen.com.
zoomtestkitchen.com. That's correct. And you'll see our main
There we
website
are.
there, and you'll be able to, click on the Discord, and that if the link isn't working, let me know and I'll have David update it. But as far as I know, the invite should still be working.
Okay, I'm looking right now. ISO.
Yeah, look for the Discord icon. I think I don't remember, top right maybe of the webpage, something like that.
Nope, it's not here. What it is
yeah,
there it is. I see it.
Yeah,
next
right
to the
beside.
YouTube logo.
Yeah, there you go.
I got it. I've accepted the invite. I am your newest member.
Excellent. So then, yeah, again, just to let everybody know, if you're not familiar with our Discord community, is that we put a lot of information in there all the time. So again, you might have saw I was talking to Jen earlier about Frank. We'll post in there when he gets new information. I'll post new information if it's breaking news related to, usually if it's OSC related. Sometimes I'll get emails from Andy. Sometimes I'll get emails from the Zoom system as well. The latest one was related to the slow versus fast versus, trying to remember the right term. Let me grab the right term. That was, the slow channel versus the fast channel versus the prompted versions of Zoom clients are changing as of the 6th. So that will be as of Monday. Did I do that right? Yeah, no, Sunday. So as of Sunday, there will be the lowest versions will be at least 6.4.x on most of the different versions. But again, that was breaking news in the on our Discord channel that I put in there this week. So if there's any little tidbits and stuff, and of course there's a community, many Zoomies are involved in the Zoom Test Kitchen community as well on Discord, and we'll answer questions. So Andy's answering questions about OSC, Justin about the actual companion app. I don't know if Josh has been in there or not talking about Zoom events or Zoom sessions as of yet, but Josh, if you are and you're watching, absolutely. You can join the Discord channel as well to answer questions about that. Trying to think. So all the liminal apps have their own little sub channels on the Discord, as well as other conversations of problems that people are having. That will be usually, if you're having a breaking problem, chances are if you ask the group, there might be somebody else also having that problem at the same time you are. And that would be a live place to ask.
Well, very cool. Yeah, it seems like there's a big crossover between, in regards to people. I see a lot of the people's names that I know from office hours,
Yeah.
in this as well.
Yeah, initially, way back in the day when Jeff started the Zoom Test Kitchen, which was during COVID, so that's how long we've been going.
Right.
When Jeff started this, it was it was one of the dedicated. So we were dedicated strictly to, as we've been since, Zoom. So where we'll talk about Ecamm, we'll talk about vMix, we'll talk about Mimo Live. We won't talk about the software specifically and spend a whole hour just on the software. We'll say, how can you use Ecamm with Zoom to do X? Or talk about before Ecamm had the integration, or vMix had the integration, or Mimo had the integration. We would say, do this, bring it into a Zoom, bring it into the Zoom client and then stream it out. Now we would say, how to use Ecamm through the client that they've built, the integration they've built into it now, so yeah, you could actually Zoom directly to that meeting or webinar or such. And of course, Jen, if you're familiar with encoders, you should also look into, if you're doing anything related to webinars. And John, correct me on the licensing here. It has to be a Zoom sessions or a Zoom events based webinar to have backstage in RTMP. Did I do that right, John?
I believe you're correct about that because I looked
You
into
have to
events
be an
and
account
sessions.
owner. You have to be account owner of a Zoom sessions license, but the way it was worded last time I heard it, you can run a normal webinar, but you must be an account holder of that to acquire the backstage. So it sounded to me, the way they said it, that if Zoom sees that you have a Zoom sessions license, and I assume that includes pay as you go, you will be given the backstage function when you run a webinar, even if you're not using that Zoom webinar as a sessions event where it would use up your tokens.
Right.
Right. And
which
also,
which is different to what it used to be. When it used to be was you had to use up your Zoom session tokens to run a Zoom sessions session, which happened to be a webinar. Now the way it's described is that you can run a Zoom webinar as long as you have the license to Zoom sessions or Zoom events. You get the ability to have backstage running at the same time.
right. Yeah. So the other important feature, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is RTMP.
RTMP. What about RTMP?
Which license do you need for RTMP? Is that a sessions and events license, at least? I'm trying to remember if that trickled down to webinar, regular webinar yet or not. I don't think so.
I don't think, I've not tried it, so I don't think so.
Yeah, but Jen, so if you're familiar being able to RTMP to YouTube or such, if you've done non-Zoom related streaming before, that RTMP encoder that you might have, physical encoder, you could now bring into as its own feed, not into a meeting, but you have to have the capability of being able to do RTMP, whatever license that is, and it is a webinar function.
Yeah.
Not a meeting.
Well,
function.
I use Restream for my meetings. That's how I do it. I use Restream and it works really well for me. But I love this group, man. You've saved me $1,000 because I didn't know any better, so I signed up for the unlimited sessions, which was $1,000 or something like that, 1,200, to find out I only needed to pay as you go $100 for the year, and I don't really use sessions. All I wanted was the 1080p streaming ability, and it works amazing. And that's what I wanted.
Right. And again, the important thing too is that, which is even more important than the 1080p, which is important too, but the more important stuff too is that you have full access to all the liminal apps are included on license too. And so that
Yep,
gets you
it's
your Zoom OSC, Zoom ISO, Zoom Tiles.
yeah, that's like I'm in kindergarten compared to that being in high school, or college. That's all. That's why I come here to learn. That's why I come here to learn. Hopefully, one day I'll know just enough to be dangerous. Right now, I don't know that much. But I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see some of your apps, John, that are going to come down the pipe that maybe I could use and benefit myself from.
Well,
Anyway, guys,
John,
it's 4th of July. I got to get ready to go. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Great. This great experience. I tell everybody about it, and it's an opportunity to learn and feel safe, even though we're broadcasting live to YouTube, which is I guess a dichotomy on that. So, you know,
yeah, yeah. Take care, Jen. Have a good 4th of July.
bye,
And
guys.
we'll see
Thanks,
you soon.
everybody. See you next week.
See you, Jen. Cool. All right, John. So how has
Well,
the
why
apps
why
been
aren't
going?
we why aren't we celebrating the 4th of July?
Well, I already celebrated July 1st, so I'm good.
Yeah, but as the colonial power, shouldn't we be celebrating the fact that we got rid of them?
That we got that we got rid of our American friends. Is that what we're
No,
going with?
we didn't have to
Uh,
worry about it anymore. Didn't
no,
have
we
the
still
king
got
didn't have to
American
keep
friends with us.
we didn't have to keep sending money over there. Stop the Spanish from invading. We just
Oh, Johnny's being a historical buff for everybody on YouTube today.
yeah, I
I'm just
am.
telling you.
Well, I might start singing some of that stuff we discovered from the choral works that the monks used to sing 600 years ago.
Oh yes, yeah, you
Yeah.
brought that up. That
My
was at the
favorite,
beginning of the show. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
My favorite. When I worked for a company that used to run great software and APIs, this wonderful company I worked for, we used to get the odd employee over from Hewlett Packard, usually quite senior employee from Hewlett Packard come over, and quite often I was the one, because I'm developer support and whatever. I would usually be asked with my arm twisted behind my back to go and collect them from the airport. And I always used to make a point of driving past Stonehenge, which those of you who don't know what Stonehenge is, it's a load of bricks which are thousands of years old. So it was always good to drive past that slightly old thing when we had American guests with us. Which reminds me,
Which
come on
reminds you,
YouTube, which reminds me that one director of Hewlett Packard was almost locked up because he had one of the original Hewlett Packard palm top computers. So this was a DOS-based little palm top computer, about the size of a phone, but in those days we didn't have phones. And we had found a way to get the very basic version of Microsoft Flight Simulator, which again wasn't as graphics as it is today, was very bitty, but ran. And we managed to get this to run on a palm top computer. And because it was a long flight, he thought it'd be entertaining to fly in this little handheld device, Microsoft Flight Simulator, on his flight over, which is fine. Except, of course, he made the mistake of asking the stewardess to ask the captain at what height the captain was flying at so he could match that. Which then, of course, caused the consternation because they thought, oh, guy's got a computer and he's taken over the plane. Because they didn't know what it was in those days. So the next thing you know is you had all these people being rather rough, taking his machine away from his prized machine away from him because they thought he was trying to fly the plane with a handheld device.
which of course he didn't even, not even close to was he doing so, but
No, the tech wasn't really there yet.
no.
And of course, to be honest, the airplane wasn't there yet either because we're talking about in the late 80s, early 90s. And I don't think there was enough electronics in a plane to be. It wasn't fly-by-wire in those days. You couldn't take a plane over with a small device because there was nothing to talk to. It was all, proper. You pull on a lever and a cable pulls on a lever and a flap changes. It wasn't electronic as it is now.
Exactly. So one more last call to our friends on YouTube before we wrap up for this 4th of July, American 4th of July long weekend. Yeah, I guess it would be long weekend for them. Our long weekend was last weekend to a point. So if you have any questions for John and I, Tony's still here. Hasbuck is here with the meters, but I'm assuming Hasbuck is sleeping. But if you do have any questions for us, by all means, let us know in YouTube chat, and Johnny and I will do our best to answer them for you before we wrap up for this week. So, Johnny, how well taken is the marketplace loving Lord Zoom's first app?
That's a good point, because I haven't actually looked at the stats. I haven't even looked at the stats. I know that the person that started it all off for me sent me a message last week, I think it was, saying that he's had the app on standby, and just the fact that it's on his machine seems to scare off all the people, so no one's causing trouble on these meetings. So if I realized it was just a confidence thing, I could have just done the app in, I could just done a little box with the word kick, couldn't I, and just ship that out. But
yeah,
yeah.
and what you now have to do now is the word kick actually does a kick emoji and make sure that it explodes. So it does multiple. Can you actually, that's funny. Let's talk about that for a second. Could you actually do multiple emoji icons, regular emoji icons?
I can count emoji icons, and I can send emoji icons. So yeah. Or I could in camera view. In camera view, my camera view, I could overlay anything I like over here. So I could make a kick icon appear. Yeah, every time I kick somebody, I could have a donkey icon kicking a bucket or something appear on the screen.
Yeah. That's funny.
Like that.
But what I was thinking was, now that the workplace app, if multiple people are doing the same emoji at the same time, it does the emoji and then it explodes, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Could you actually trigger that somehow? You can.
Yes, I could. Yes, because, and this is probably why I had trouble at the beginning. There is no such thing as a API call for hand raised. It's buried in another call, which is to do with all the things that happen on that button, all the different activities. So that's why when they first asked me, I couldn't find. I knew something existed because I've seen Stream Decks be able to do these things, so I knew there was something there. But when, of course, the I believe the number of API calls is literally in the thousands, because you've got to remember it's not just Zoom, as in the world we talk about. It also supports Zoom Phone. It also supports Zoom Contact Center. So there are lots of different parts of Zoom, and they've all got their own separate API calls. And I don't think there's anyone in Zoom who knows them all, because usually when I fire questions, there'll be like 3 or 4 people, and depending on what you ask, one of those 4 people will be using that part of the system on a regular basis, and they will try and answer the question. So there's nobody that knows all the API calls, and quite often it's not a question of what Zoom can do. It's a question of, can you find somebody who can help you find the connection between what you want to do and the function that's out there? Because it's not always really obvious. I mean, it's really obvious. You say, I want a list of all the meetings I have. Well, that's easy, because you just go meetings and it says, I can do a list of meetings, can I have meetings, take meetings away. You can find it. But when you ask for these more esoteric things, like, can you make an explosion happen on the screen? You've got to know a handful of different commands that are available to be able to do that. But of course, the kicking app has been fun, because there's a whole gamut of things that you can do in that sort of like little mini ecosystem in the meeting. And without getting into the weeds, there are a few, not dirty tricks, but there are a few things. We were talking about things being complicated all the time in Zoom. You have to, and Zoom is trying to make it simpler. Well, the nice thing about the in-meeting world is actually it's really simple to do all those functions, and they're very much enclosed in their own little world of in the meeting. And therefore, it doesn't take a very great amount of skill. You've got a bit of program, but you don't need to do advanced programming techniques to do a lot of it. Oh, except my app, of course, which was a disaster because of all the different things that can happen before you kick somebody. But that's another story. But one of the things we're looking at in Zoom, and I don't think I'm giving away anything. I'm pretty sure I'm not giving it. No, I'm not giving away anything because it was mentioned in the. So it's fine. It was mentioned in the Zoom in the blum 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 conference 2 weeks ago. So I'm not giving you anything.
Developer Summit.
And the Developer Summit. So they Zoom are now looking for people who will share, and I've already been asked to do one. So I've submitted my resume already. So they're asking for some people who can give some example apps, but in a bit more than what Zoom have been doing so far at the moment, where the engineers just chuck up some code, put it on the internet, and they say, "This is how you do this," and then you get the README file, and that's it. That's the support you get. So Zoom is now trying to think of a way to get people to think about an app idea. So, I mean, I think the hands raised app might be a good example because, as you say, it brings into focus. Perhaps you only need perhaps half a dozen calls, and yet you can do things about people doing what reactions they're doing, how you're going to respond to it. There's a whole load of little tangents you can go off into with just a very small core number of calls. And the idea of Zoom is they want to get people to create some little ecosystem of a function with a use case and possible other use cases, and then we're going to write a blog post about it, put it in the Zoom onto Zoom as a blog post, and then try and encourage people to do variations on that particular idea. Because there's three groups, as I see it, there's three groups of people. I'm probably going to think of more as I tell you these, but there's more or less three groups of developers out there. There's corporate developers or developers hired by corporates, where there is some data in Zoom or some data they want to put into Zoom. So data coming from Zoom would be a good example, would be like Zoom meetings or Zoom recordings. So there's data in Zoom that they want programmatically to get out of Zoom and to put into whatever their other system. So maybe they want to download personal webinars and attach them to their CRM system so that the person that had the meeting in their CRM is somehow attached to the recording of what happened, so they can refer to it later, or the transcript of the recording. So there's a corporate world where they want to just go in, grab some of the data out of their corporate system and bring that back into Zoom. Then you've got the other extreme. You've got the commercial people who think of a clever idea and create an app and then want to sell it to everybody. But you've also got the other hidden ecosystem, and I would love to know how big this is, of little software programmers who are just curious about Zoom and have written an app. And all they've done is they've written the app for themselves. Because if you write the app for yourself, you don't have to go through all the paperwork of Zoom, of releasing it onto the marketplace, because you only use it for yourself. So the only person you can corrupt is your own data. The only person you can break is your own Zoom account, because you only got access to your own Zoom account, and that's where all the apps are anyhow, and in development mode on your account only. And I really would love to know what the breakdown of the three is and how much they're using them, and but none of that data is available out of Zoom. But I know they use it because their timesheet app definitely came from the fact they saw there were lots of people using timesheet apps. And how can I put this politely? A bit like Amazon. If Amazon sees a certain product is being sold at a ridiculous price and there's thousands of them selling it, there's a temptation for Amazon to make their own version and take the market for themselves.
Yeah. Or a
I'm not
variation
saying
of that, but yeah, close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying Zoom is watching the apps to steal them, but what I'm saying is that Zoom is obviously going to look at the apps that are popular. And if there's an app or there's a use case that's popular, there's going to be pressure on Zoom to make that part of the core program so it can be available to everybody. Now, if that squashes a developer, c'est la vie. But unfortunately, for the greater good, there could be things that will come along. I mean, there's almost, I mean, we haven't said it today, but there's almost a crunch moment now for all these apps we've been talking about, all these Mimo Live and vMix, and we should have a list, shouldn't we? Because I always leave one out and I feel guilty then. But all these apps were written in the old video SDK. Well, now Zoom is moving to RTMS. The question is going to be, do you want to write another version of app that works in the proper Zoom Workplace app and has the ability to sit in the marketplace in that app rather than being a completely separate piece of software? Is there a business case for why you would want to move across? At the moment, I think probably most of them are going to say no, because it hasn't, RTMS and all that hasn't really developed so much. And there's still a limitation, as you were saying about, it's got to be, if it's inside Zoom, it's going to be an instant. Whereas if you've got it outside Zoom, you can use, fade in and fade outs and crossfades. You can add all that code. So I think at the moment, that is not an answer. But one of the interesting conversations I was having with the Zoom guys, and I'm not giving you any NDAs because this is my view to them, not their answer, is there will have to become a time when the video processing that they're giving us at the moment only works in JavaScript. And JavaScript is a easy to programming language because all websites built out of it, but it's going to have its limitations for what it's going to be able to do when it starts to process video. It's not going to be able to do clever video things because it's just a simple language. So it's going to be a question, at what point do you either take that data and put it into another piece of software to do all the clever things, or do you go back to Zoom and say, okay, well, the original development kit was written in C, which is a much more powerful programming language. How do we get a marketplace app to run in C? Or is that ever going to be possible? Can we have a more powerful programming language to run that app in Zoom? And of course, the example I gave was, can you give us a library in Swift? Because Swift on the Mac is a simpler to use programming language, but is a more powerful programming language. In fact, we know, I think it's pretty much open knowledge, that a lot of the liminal stuff was written in that programming language. And there are some libraries available for Swift. And in fact, I was actually seeing some questions today. Some of those libraries are actually not up to date at the moment with Zoom. So they've not been kept up to date as some of the other apps. And there's a problem with them getting out of date now and issues flying around with that. This is the other problem Zoom has. Of course, every tool it releases is then got to support it. You end up with all these, the whole idea of Zoom was one version and it can work on all platforms. But every time you add another tool to make the developer's world easier, you're making another tool that Zoom is now going to have to keep up to date and look after.
Yeah, so true. All right, we've got a question from YouTube. We got Hershey's asking us, he's saying, is spotlighting found only on webinar, or is it also a business workplace? I'm assuming you're asking business workplace license.
Spotlight is available everywhere there are 3 persons or more collected together with cameras on.
Right. So in as an example right now, I will spotlight John and I will spotlight
voice meter
me. So now you got both of us, YouTube, and now because the other 2 people, Tony and Hasma, are not here. Oh, and there, thank you, John. And John actually spotlighted the meters. So now you will all see YouTube that we are now on David's account using meeting spotlighted, because we have at least 3, as John mentioned, 3 videos, 3 people in the meeting that have their video on. So then you can spotlight. Again, it's the infamous, is it a 2-person meeting or is it actually a group meeting? And that's where the differences start to come into play. Of 2 people talking is just a meeting. So you don't really spotlight because there's only 2 of you. But as soon as you get 3 or more, then you can actually then go in and spotlight like we did there, where John and I are now just currently just spotlight because John removed the meters out of the spotlight. So now you have both John and I beside each other. So he also asked, I just got business 1080p, still trying to figure things out. Yes, so definitely business will allow you to do 1080p. Absolutely. And that is 1080p at maximum 30. And I know that one of your questions is bringing up 25 versus 30 frames. So let me get to that. Did I encode? Did I? And I did an episode using Zoom alone, and the editor had problems because it was coming off with 25 frames per second rather than 30. So my question, Hershey, to that, and I know John, it's going to be John's question as well, is that who did the recording, and are you in North America? No, it was coming off as 30, 25 frames versus 30. So John, for you, you would get a 25 frame, correct? Being in the UK? And
No,
I
I
would
don't
get
think
30?
so. No,
No?
I think the recording is the same for everybody around the world.
Okay. So as far as I know, all my recordings that I get are all 30 frame.
Yeah, I
And
expect them
I
all to
don't
be
even have a
worldwide
business
30.
account that we're using right now. I'm actually only using a pro. So I'm getting, because again, I have Zoom events, I get 1080p, but even at 720p, I get 30 frames a second. The only reasoning for getting 25 is PAL related, and that is usually European related. And it could be a setting that John's doing some testing as we speak. And John is in Europe. So again, 25, if he's saying it's 30 as well, which he's checking right now, that would be my only thought, just because of the two different standards that North America has 30 and 60 and 29.97, but I'm not getting into interlaced. But if we're talking progressive 30 and 60 in North America, John, for you, broadcast wise, it's still 25 and 50, correct?
Yeah, but in the Zoom, it's that everything's 30, to my knowledge.
Right. Okay, so I would have your person that's doing the video editing to double check. Also, if you're doing the recording in the Zoom Workplace app, make sure that you go into the settings. And I'm pretty sure it's the same on a Mac. John, you can double check this for me on Mac. But you would have to go into audio and go into advanced. Oh, no, it's not in there. It's a recording. Yeah, it's in recording. So go into settings and go into recording and go into advanced. And you would want to make sure that you optimize for third-party video editors. I know most of us in the Zoom test community, I know all my machines and all the employees, I had the IT department make sure that if they are doing local records, that is one of the requirements. I have them enable that on all our accounts. But double check that that is also there too, and that will assist should you have any issues when you give your video to the editor. John, any other thoughts before I continue to the next question?
Yes, don't forget that you need to make sure that your account and your user has got HD if that's where you're going, depending on what account you're using. You've got business, so you want to make sure that in your business account, the account settings for the owner of the account have got set as 1080, and then also the user, there's a settings in the user settings which is also 1080. If you don't have both of them enabled, then you won't get your 1080.
Right. And if you're newer to having a business license from a pro or even a free, then definitely double check that. And again, you'd have to get in, depending on your layout. If it is just you doing it for yourself, then you'd have to go into the min section and the user section. John, I did that right? And the
Yeah, because people tend to forget if they've only got an account of their own, they forget the fact that they're seen by Zoom as two people. They're seen as the account holder and an account user, and they need to make sure they get both settings set up. Every time you do something in the settings, you always need to make sure, as you go to the bottom of the menu, make sure as an account holder, you have the settings set there, and then you go up and do as an account user, you make sure you have the settings set there. But sometimes you can quite easily set the accounts at the bottom level and then force everybody, which is just you, to follow the rules, and you don't have to do it twice.
Right. Right. So Hershey, hopefully that, okay, sorry, I had a phone call that you didn't join tonight. No, that's good. That's fine, Hershey. Join us next week. We'll be here again.
I had a phone call today.
You did? Was it a
I
Zoom
did.
phone call?
It was a Zoom phone call on my phone. That's
Excellent.
the first time. I never go out much. That's the first time I've taken a Zoom phone call on my phone, which is only a Galaxy A14, is it? I think it is. So it's quite an old phone as well. But after they added the recording function, I thought, well, I've got to put it on my phone so I can do the live recording of audio. And yeah, I took a phone call on my phone from my Zoom phone number through Zoom, and it was from, oh, I can quote them. Why not get the publicity for making the call for me? It was from Zendesk, because I was evaluating their software to be my ticketing solution for my app. Because again, Zoom, praise be to them, do require that you have some sort of support ticketing type solution to get your app on the marketplace. Again, if you do it for yourself or you do it for a corporate for them, you don't have to worry about these things because it's never seen in the ecosystem. But they were phoning me up asking me how my demo was going of their software.
Cool. Cool. So Hershey gave us a quick update. He says, I'm in Florida, USA. I had both the HD and 1080p set. Good.
Yeah.
The only thing he said was missing was I will optimize the third-party setting. Yeah.
Okay.
So that
I've never done that on my account, and I've not had any real problems, but I'm guessing that if I actually bother to do that change, my video processing would probably be slightly quicker.
True. And you might actually get potentially, and again, I don't know because I haven't tested without it, you might get actually better. No, not a better quality.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And also a little idea in that vein. When he was asking about the 25 frames and the 30 frames.
Yeah.
If you opened up your video editor and you had it set to 25 frames a second, which is your default, and then you just imported the video, quite a lot of video programs will prompt you, do you want to change it to what you've just imported? It's not all do. And it may be that the software was running at 25 and they could have still imported Zoom at 30. And then the system would try and make sense of the two. And you could get, as you say, could get blurry because it's now trying to mix the formats and the speeds.
Yeah. Cool. So I was just asking Hershey if he had any follow-up questions for us, and I'll give him a few seconds for that so he can catch up on the video. But yeah, it's almost that time to wrap up this 4th of July episode of the Zoom Test Kitchen. I'm just going to give Hershey a few more seconds here to see if he comes back with anything. And of course, Hershey, yes, absolutely. If you have more questions for us, this is what we do here at the Zoom Test Kitchen. We answer specific Zoom related questions, especially we take into consideration a lot of the time certain situations, because again, if you're having that situation, chances are other people in the Zoom Test Kitchen community are having it too. It's just a matter of time that they might not have had it yet, but at least now we're also helping them too. If that they do run into the situation that they might run into that problem, they know how to deal with it because we've taught them, because we've done it live here. Also, if they have run into it, now they know what, maybe they did it a different way. We would love to hear how they did it, and we'll try that way too. And Hershey is thanking us. Thank you, Hershey, and hope to see you next week. But yeah, definitely, this is the place we love for testing. So again, just make sure that you're part of our community and make sure that we get to know you we just don't let anyone in, as you saw with me today, protecting the YouTube channel as well as the Zoom test kitchen from bombers today. Good old bombers on both ends today. But yeah, and Robert was testing the whole time. And I'm hoping that, Robert, you did well in your testing. And I hope this week, if the testing that you did works out well for you until we meet again on Friday next week. So, John, I'm thinking that considering it's 4th of July, I'm thinking we should go with some sort of party-ish version of the Zoom Test Kitchen.
Okay. I'm just trying to find out what night I have to stay up late, because I am recording with Tony Mobley next week.
Are you? That would be Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Tony Mobley,
Well, it's not
Tony
Wednesday.
Mobley.
It's the early hours of Thursday morning.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's Wednesday evening, US time.
That would be, yes, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Conversations with Tony Mobley. Tony Mobley, free sponsor ad for you there, sir.
Yeah,
because I've been on Tony Mobley as well, John. So you'll be having a great time there with Tony and the crew.
Yeah, as long as I have a couple of hours sleep before I go live, because it's like 2 in the morning for me.
Nothing like Tony being live with Tony and getting live questions from Tony's audience as well. All right. Oh, let me just double check and make sure that the sound share is actually going to be stereo high fidelity. We got to do stereo high fidelity for our Zoom Test Kitchen people. Got to. They deserve it, especially on July the 4th. You ready to wrap this up, Johnny?
I couldn't be more excited.
Excellent. On that note, enjoy the dance version of Zoom Test Kitchen.
Welcome to the Zoom Test Kitchen, where it happens you're funny and air testing tech to thrive. From screen share to breakout rooms, we push Zoom to its max. So sit back, relax, and let's see what's in our tech hacks. Zooming in, we're testing it all, live on YouTube each week. From audio to video, no feature we won't tweak. We're the Zoom Test Kitchen crew, here to innovate. Join the fun, learn the tech, don't be late. We'll dive into the settings, explore every single tab. Make sure your mic is clear, your camera not a drag. Whoa, we'll show you how to host like a pro, manage like a king. With Zoom Test Kitchen, you'll be zooming with a zing. Zooming in, we're testing it all, live on YouTube each week. From audio to video, no feature we won't tweak. We're the Zoom Test Kitchen crew, here to innovate. Join the fun, learn the tech, don't be late. We'll dive into the settings, explore every single tab. Make sure your mic is clear, your camera not a drag. Whoa, we'll show you how to host like a pro, manage like a king. With the Zoom Test Kitchen, you'll be zooming with a zing. Zooming in, we're testing it all, live on YouTube each week. From audio to video, no feature we won't tweak. We're the Zoom Test Kitchen crew, here to innovate. Join the fun, learn the tech, don't be late. Whether you're new to Zoom or an expert in disguise, we've got tips and tricks. We'll open up your eyes from polls to quizzes. We test functionalities, join us live, see what Zoom does with ease. So if your meetings lag, or you can't share your screen, or if your audio echoes like you're stuck in between, we've got solutions. We'll show you how it's done. Zoom Test Kitchen, more Zoom fun as it goes. Zooming in, we're testing it all, live on YouTube each week. From audio to video, no feature we won't tweak. We're the Zoom Test Kitchen crew, here to innovate. Join the fun, learn the tech, don't be late. So tune in, don't miss out on this tech fest we lead. Every Friday, Zoom Test Kitchen, where you'll succeed. We'll make your Zoom meeting smooth, keep the tech in check. In the Zoom Test Kitchen, we've got
All right, then Johnny's writing on our screen, and I think I'm still okay to take that off. All right, there we go. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us this week. And as John was writing on the screen, happy 4th of July to all our American friends. And don't forget, before you leave us, to like and subscribe to our channel to let YouTube know how much you like our content. Like Jan was talking about earlier, how much she loves the Zoom Test Kitchen community. And don't forget, we're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. And one of these days, John, I promise I will put in our UTC time as well. But next week, here, Zoom Test Kitchen. See everyone for another edition of the mighty testing place that Zoom loves us for, the Zoom Test Kitchen. Take care, YouTube. Until